All right, well, good afternoon and welcome to USDA's Spring Data Users Meeting. My name is Joe Parsons and I serve as Chair of the Agricultural Statistics Board at the National Ag Statistics Service, and I'll be your moderator for the event. But before we get any further, we're here at the Omaha branch of the Kansas City Federal Reserve Bank, and I'd like to welcome Nathan Coughlin to come up and just say a few words. So thank you so much for letting us use your venue.
Well, thanks, Joe, and let me be also the first to welcome you here to Omaha. For those of you that haven't been to Omaha before, it's great to have you here. This is our Omaha branch of the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City. So for those of you that aren't familiar, Kansas City is our head office. We've got a branch here, a branch in Denver, and a branch in Oklahoma City. We're actually real glad to be able to host you for this meeting for a couple of reasons. One is because I've actually attended this meeting in the past. It's been a little while, but the commute's a little easier when you're hosting it here. But you know, we also have recently renovated this space, and we're glad to be able to bring groups in like this to be able to engage in discussion. And for us, when we're heavily involved in tracking conditions in agriculture, also we want to make sure that we're engaged and can have some venue like this as well for it. So pleased to be able to have all of you with us. I'm looking forward to learning both today and then also tomorrow, but just wanted to welcome you to the Omaha branch of the Kansas City Fed, and let us know if there's anything that you need, of course, but hope that the meeting that today and tomorrow goes well. So thanks for coming, everybody.
Thanks, sir. Yeah. Thank you for that, Nathan. Really appreciate it. And you know, tomorrow there will be the Industry Outlook Conference. So those of you that probably already know about that'll be attending. But it is a good opportunity for us to partner and have a joint audience and really get some great feedback. So by the way, we're very glad that you're on the call for those of you who are joining us virtually and in the room, and looking forward to sharing our program or work with you. For those in the room, of course, welcome to Omaha. I would have had Peyton Manning come in and do the intro, but it was a little expensive. So yeah, there you go. Anyway, he wasn't in the budget. So let me see if I can get this slides working. We're going to offer we have closed captioning, and it's available through the closed captioning there in Zoom. You'll see a button. The meeting will be recorded, so you know, if you don't want to be recorded, I guess leave or don't say anything, I suppose. But we'll be posting that on our website, and the link is up there on the screen for you. But we'll get that posted pretty quickly after the meeting. So if you do miss something or a comment and you want to go back and check it out, it'll be there. We'll also put up the Q&A, and almost invariably there's a few questions that we don't get to. We'll take care of them there, or you know, it's like we'll have to go back and study that a little bit and put a more complete answer up. We will do that, and they will also be posted. Hopefully this is unnecessary, but if something comes along and we have a technical problem or whatever, we'll try to deal with it in real time. Marissa's pretty good with that, and we got Natalie in the background too. So, but if it does, we'll probably end the virtual part of the conference and then send you a link and have you all rejoin. So we'll be communicating with you if that does happen via your email from the registration. Just a request, we're not going to go around and do introductions, even though we could probably pull that off here in the room. We've got a few hundred folks on the call, and just to kind of keep things even, we're not going to do that. But I would ask that as you're asking questions, use the microphone, because that's the only way that you're going to be heard by the folks that are virtual. And also, if you'd be so kind as to just state your name and your organization, that's helpful for folks. And we can also pick that up in the transcript. So there is these owls, and believe it or not, that's how it's broadcasting the video. And so it should pick up from your voice and sort of swing towards you. It probably won't work perfectly for those that are in our virtual audience, but you will at least get a sense of the question and the person asking the question in the room. I will try to sort of alternate between online questions and otherwise, and we'll see how that goes. So there is a question and answer link for those of you that are virtual. at the bottom of your screen here on this webinar. You're most welcome to go ahead and start pounding things into there if you want. It'd be first in the queue, if you will, after we get done with our distinguished folks here on the panel. So you're welcome to go ahead and start using that now. If you're having technical issues, that's probably the best place to go, the chat rather, if you're having a technical issue, or you can email Natalie Hudson, natalie.hudson@usda.gov, and she can probably help you out. Also, if you have a colleague that would like to join virtually and didn't get the registration opportunity, Natalie or Marissa can probably help with that as we're going along and get them included. Let's see. Make sure I don't miss something here. All right. So we have many attendees and distinguished guests from around the world, including folks from Stat Canada and also Mexico's Agricultural Statistics Organization. So we welcome them, and you know, they might be able to speak to something depending on what the question is that comes up anywhere that affects North American statistics. For the spring meeting, we're conducting the meeting in a hybrid format and are excited to have you know, be able to coordinate, as I said. And we decided not to hold breakouts this spring. We'll bring those back, I think, in the fall. But as we were looking at it, we decided we would forego those and just have the report outs and the Q&A as we've done in the past. Okay, so pretty simple. We may have to do a little tech switch over when we end the forum and slide into it. We got that solved. We're good. All right, we'll go right into it. Oh, very good. All right. So in the reminder email that Marissa sent a little bit earlier this week, you should have received an attached file with highlights from each of the participating agencies today. And I think for our virtual attendees, they received an email. So you should have somewhere something that looks like this when you came in. If you didn't get one, we have some at the table there outside, or we can bring one around to you. And you may see some stuff that our panelists don't get the opportunity to remark on, but that may whet your appetite for some areas in which you want to dive a little deeper and ask some questions. So I'm going to ask each of the panelists to introduce yourself and provide some brief remarks. And I do want to mention too that we have representatives from both RMA and from EIA, the Energy Information Administration, on the line, and I think they're willing to take a question or two. So we'll pipe them in. I think they're on as panelists for us. And a number of our panelists also have some support too. So if they don't know the answer, they're going to phone a friend, and I'm sure that should help them out. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Patrick. And I'll let you introduce yourself, Patrick. And I'm going to bring this owl. I'm going to put it down here, and it should be able to see you guys a little bit better.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Well, Patrick Pacman, as Joe said, I'm the Deputy Administrator in the Global Market Analysis Program area at FAS. And as Joe mentioned, I have a number of my staff back in Washington that's on the line to help answer your questions and provide additional detail about our data products. I think most of the audience are familiar with the products and systems we have at FAS, including our PS&D Online database, World Markets and Trade, commodity reports, at-per-share gain reports, GATS, U.S. Trade Database, World Agricultural Production Reports, and a host of other geospatial data products that we offer. Everything is fairly stable at the moment with our data products, and they're outlined in the booklet there. So I won't spend much time on that. What I'd like to do this afternoon is spend a little time bringing you up to speed on our efforts to upgrade our export sales reporting system. And as you recall, we had a sort of unsuccessful launch of that system last August. And since then, we are continuing to work towards a successful future launch of the system. I want to highlight for the data users that the new system, the 2.1 system that we are proposing, it changes, we're proposing to change the way that we collect the data from the exporters. Currently, exporters provide data to us on an aggregate basis. So if you have company A, they report how much of a particular commodity that they've sold or exported, to a particular country during the week. With the new system, we're asking for exporters to provide data on each specific contract that they've entered into for all of their export sales. The move to this contract-based system is intended to address concerns we've had and concerns that have been brought to us about late reporting and about non-compliance of reporters. And we hope that it will improve our ability to monitor and enforce compliance with the reporting requirements. We know that export sales is a significant market indicator. And we hope that this will result in an improvement in the overall quality, timeliness, and reliability of our data. But the contract-based reporting system is a significant change for the exporters. We conducted 6 outreach seminars with the commodity exporters, reporters between January and March to familiarize the exporters with the new system and to gather feedback from them. During the outreach seminars, exporters noted that the new approach would be substantially increase the time and their burden to comply with the regulations and add a lot of additional transactions and more data entry on their part. We have built an electronic transfer facility into the system that should help ease the burden of the additional data entry on the exporters. However, the electronic transfer system still needs to be tested, and it will require an investment by the exporters to program their systems to extract the data in the format that we require it to do the automated upload in the proper format. We are opening the new system for testing for the exporters today. This will be the first opportunity for exporters to have hands-on with the new system and to attempt to enter their test data. This will also be the first opportunity that we have for a real-world test of the electronic data transfer. We are also preparing a Federal Register notice related to the export sales reporting program. This notice seeks to renew our OMB Paperwork Reduction Act approval to collect information under the program, but we are also seeking comments on the new reporting format that we are proposing and including the additional burden on the reporters under the program. So as data users, you all, and if you have interest in the export sales reporting program, you may also submit comments to the Federal Register notice. And I would encourage you to, that anyone who has views on the system and what we're proposing to take advantage of the opportunity to submit comments to the Federal Register notice. From the data user side of things with export sales, we have circulated an export sales reporting data consumption survey. And I want to thank everybody who took the time to respond to the survey. We also intend to hold outreach seminars for the data users at some point in the future, so you can have the chance to see our new portal the query system, the weekly reports, and the automated downloads that we'll have available for the users. But essentially, I think users are happy with the data that they're able to download and to gather now with the systems. So we'll look to leave much of that intact, but improve where we can. One final point I just highlighted, not related to export sales, but we are now providing direct access to our iPad geospatial resources on the FAS homepage. It's been mentioned in the past that that data is not directly accessible from the FAS webpage. So we've got direct links there now. There's a geospatial resources tab with links. You can access our Crop Explorer system as well as our GATIS system and other geospatial data resources. So with that, I'll conclude my remarks, but look forward to engaging with you all and our team back in Washington on any questions you have about FAS data.
Thanks, Patrick. Thanks, Patrick. Before we go on to Mark, I just want to, I know we're getting reports that the mics aren't so great on the virtual, and I have a suspicion what might make that so. If any of you are logged into the webinar, that's fine. But if you would, make sure and mute your computer's microphones, because otherwise it creates a feedback loop because it's hearing the audio sort of twice. So if anybody's logged in to the webinar on your laptop right now, go ahead and make sure and mute. All right, with that, we'll see if that makes a difference. I hope it does. And we'll go to Dr. Mark Jekanowski.
All right. Thank you.
Got a clicker there?
Yeah, we have a few slides. All right. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mark Jekanowski. I'm the chair of the World Agricultural Outlook Board. And just a regular quick overview of who we are and what we do. We're known for one thing, and that's putting out the monthly World Agricultural Supply and Demand Estimates report. And we do that by chairing USDA's Interagency Commodity Estimates Committee. So we're a fairly small agency, 20 people in total, including 5 meteorologists. And with me here today are several of the chairs representing the different commodities, main commodity groups within the WASDE, including Shale Shagum, and livestock chair, Mark Simone, food grains, Mike Jewison, feed grains, and Joanna Hitchner is here representing oilseeds. Keith Menzie is also online, along with Steve McDonald on cotton and Steve Haley on sugars and sweeteners. So we'll try and see if this works better. All right. Interagency Commodity Estimates Committee. It is a committee that represents several agencies across USDA, and essentially every agency represented on this table today provides input or expertise into that process. So just kind of a quick reminder of where we are within our WASDE process right now. As you probably are aware, we released our very first initial estimates for the 2023 crop year during the Ag Outlook Forum in February. Since then, NASS provided the prospective plantings report with there was an initial survey-based acreage forecast for all the crops, and now in May, so next month, we will release the first official USDA WASDE for the new crop year for the 2023 crops. So that work is getting underway, busy time of the year for us. And then, of course, as the year progresses, we'll continue to update those forecasts with new information as it comes out from NASS and from all of the global production and demand data as well. So with May, since May is always our first look at the new crop year, it's also an opportunity for us to make any changes or updates to our tables or the format of the WASD. We just have one relatively small change this year to report, and that is providing a little bit additional data, a little bit more detail into wheat by class balance sheets. So including imports, food use, seed use, and feed and residual by class within the WASD. All that information was already provided, as you know, for all wheat, but now we'll provide it each month by class as well. Now, I did say we're the one thing that we're known for is the monthly WASD report, but in fact, there is one other thing, very important thing. We also manage and put together every year the Agricultural Outlook Forum. 2023, this past February, was our first year being back in person since the pandemic. And needless to say, we weren't sure what to expect. We were kind of nervous putting it together. Didn't know if we were going to have a couple hundred people or a few thousand, and it turned out, I think, as well as we could have expected, maybe even better. We had about 1,400 people in person at the Crystal City Marriott in Arlington, and since we've done the event virtually for the past 2 years, we built on what we learned over those past 2 years, and also provided the entire program virtually as well, so folks could attend in person or watch online, and virtual attendance included exceeded about 3,000. So the pandemic really taught us how to expand our reach of the forum, and but it was great to be back in person, and we're looking forward to continuing to be in person now, for the foreseeable future. Just worth noting as well, if you weren't able to attend the forum either in person or virtually, it's still free of charge. The entire event can be viewed online up to a year past the actual date from last February. So feel free to get on the website and check out any of the sessions you might have missed. And finally, it's never too early to start planning and getting your flights lined up for next year's forum. So February 15th, 16th, 2024, it's already on the calendar. Just note that is 1 week earlier than we typically have it. Usually we hold the forum the Thursday and Friday following President's Day. Next year, it's going to be 1 week earlier just because of some constraints we had with the hotel. But in any case, it's going to be back in person and also online. So mark your calendars, and we hope to see you there. And I will leave it there and turn it over to NASS.
Thank you, Mark. Good afternoon. My name is Tony Dorn. I'm the Acting Director of Statistics Division with NASS, and with me, along with Joe Parsons, is Travis Averill of our Livestock Branch, and also Chris Hawthorne from Crops Branch is online as well. As many of you know, the NASS mission is to provide timely, accurate, and useful statistics in service to U.S. agriculture, and I'll go over some of the main highlights of what's new in NASS with you. First of all, in crops, NASS is moving the grain crushings and co-products production annual summary report from March to September beginning in 2023. This report incorporates updated previous year data from NASS surveys, as well as data obtained from the Energy Information Administration, EIA. EIA has begun publishing annual revisions to the previous crop year in August, so therefore the new NASS release timeframe will allow these critical data to be included in the revision process. NASS is permanently moving the in-season updating of acreage estimate for corn, sorghum, soybeans, and sugar beets to the September crop production report. The necessary data, including survey data, satellite-based data, and the latest information from USDA's Farm Service Agency and Risk Management Agency are sufficiently complete to support the review 1 month earlier than was previously done. And beginning in 2023, NASS will add in-season updating of acreage estimates for winter wheat, other spring wheat, durum wheat, barley, and oats to the August crop production report. This update will utilize survey data, satellite-based data, and the latest information from USDA's Farm Service Agency and Risk Management Agency, similar to the in-season update for most major row crops in September and October. As far as livestock, on January 11th, 2023, the highly anticipated NASS Cost of Pollination Report was released, and that included 2017 and 2022 data. In the environmental, economics, and demographics area, on October 28th, 2022, the Conservation Practices Adoption Motivation Survey, CPAM, highlights were released. And the focus of the 2022 CPAM survey was crops and livestock conservation practices, while the 2024 survey will focus on grazing and forest land on farms. On November 23rd, 2022, the Farm Labor Survey results were released. This was the second year that coefficients of variation were associated with model-based estimates were published. On December 15th of last year, the 2021 organics results were released. And the primary purpose of the organic survey is to provide acreage, inventory, production, value of sales, and sales outlets, and production practices on certified organic farms. The organic survey provides comprehensive data at the state and national level for organic crops, livestock, and marketing and production practices. On February 17th, the farms and landed farms data were released. This was the second year since 2020 where the June agricultural survey was used to compute indications of farm numbers and acres of land and farms. And next week, on April 28th, the monthly agricultural prices will be released. That uses an updated annual benchmark methodology for all monthly prices paid indexes. And this is the second year the new methodology is being used. And with the new benchmarking method, the annual average of administrative data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the Energy Information Administration is now being used as a component of the index formula. One big event and project we have going on right now is the Census of Agriculture. Hopefully everybody's well aware of where we're at and that it's going on right now. And as everyone is probably aware, the data collection phase is where we're in right now, and it's well underway. And NASS began mailing to just under 3 million farms and ranches in November 2022. The data collection phase is scheduled to continue through the spring. Editing, analysis, and data review continue throughout 2023. The release is tentatively planned for February of 2024. And at NASS, we're really encouraged by the number of responses received from our online reporting system. This is a new web-based data collection instrument that provides respondents streamlined reporting of Census of Agriculture data with better options to save and return, along with the ability for the producer to print a copy for their own records. The online tool speeds up reporting for the respondents by customizing the instrument based on the types of crops and livestock they produce. And while the web responses are very encouraging, to date, NASS has received nearly 1.4 million completed questionnaires, and yet return rates are falling behind previous census years. The stronger the response, the stronger the data, which means representation and resources for our nation's producers. We have extended our deadline to respond through the spring, and I've asked everyone to please continue to help us spread the word and encourage responses to everyone that you can. And thank you. I want to send out a thank you to everybody who has responded and has already spread the word, and also to our partners and those who have supported and helped promote the Census of Agriculture. Related to the Census of Agriculture, there are two special studies that are planned for fiscal year 2024. The 2023 Irrigation and Water Management Survey and the 2023 Census of Aquaculture. The 2023 Irrigation and Water Management Survey is an integral part of the Census of Agriculture and is conducted every 5 years. The primary purpose of this survey is to provide a wide range of irrigation-related data covering water use, irrigation practices, irrigation by type, irrigation by crop, expenses, sources of information, purchase of energy for pumping water by power sources, and uses of recycled or reclaimed water. Data collection is set to begin in January 2023 with a release intended for later that year. The other special study planned for 2024 is the Census of Aquaculture. It's also conducted under the authority of the Census of the Agriculture Act of 1997, and participation is also mandatory. Data collection is set to begin in December 2023 with a release intended before the end of 2024. Moving on to modernization, USDA NASS, we're committed to a high standards of customer service and making it easy for farmers, ranchers, and data users to interact with us. NASS is modernizing our online systems to improve the customer experience around reporting data and accessing NASS official federal agricultural data and reports. We're making accurate data available on schedule in ways that customers like yourself and other data users have told us they want. We have continued our efforts to modernize customer interfaces, making respondent to surveys and accessing NASS data reports faster and friendlier and easier. And modernization is really focused on two main areas: data collection and data dissemination. As far as data collection, NASS recently released a new respondent portal of all new data, and all new data collections now flow through this modern entry point. Just a few of the immediate benefits of the portal are that it provides a customized digital experience designed around the user's needs and behaviors, and is integrated with USDA's farmers.gov website that allows farmers, ranchers, and agribusinesses to expand their access to multiple USDA agencies' information and make decisions for their operation. As far as data dissemination, one big milestone was that in December of 2022, the milk production data was released in the new modern format. As NASS continues to evolve and optimize our data products and services, new content and functionality will be added, and we're looking forward to working on economics and field crop information in 2023. And the new format can be viewed on our website at data.nass.usda.gov and /dairy/milk-production. And of course, for all information regarding NASS, feel free to visit the NASS website and follow us on Twitter and other social media.
The other mic, we're going to try that. Hopefully improve things. So. Push the button.
Apologies, it doesn't appear, the light is coming up here, but obviously you can't hear my voice, so we'll try this. So hi everyone, I'm Kelly McGuire. I am the Assistant Administrator at USDA's Economic Research Service, and I also serve as the agency's Chief Data Officer. It's good to see everyone here. I'm here with a number of ERS staff, some of whom I'm meeting myself for the very first time in person, so I'll be able to tag team with some of them on answers to your questions, and hopefully you all get a chance to meet some of the other ERS staff who are here. Do I have slides coming? I need to click through. Okay. Here we go. And I particularly want to thank Jen Bond, who is our Deputy Director for Outlook, for coming here and answering all the hard questions. So many of you, or most of you, probably are familiar with this, but I always like to start a little bit with our mission statement. ERS is one of the 13 principal federal statistical agencies, along with our sister agency, of course, NASS. We also have the Census Bureau here on the panel as a federal statistical agency. And our research program is both broad and deep. And so today what I'm going to be doing is offering you a little bit of a sense of what's on the buffet, and then you can go back and choose what you want to dig into deeper. ERS is both a consumer and a producer of data, and I'll be in my remarks kind of giving you a sampling of what we do in both of those spaces. But I did want to note that our research agenda covers the Outlook program. We have a lot of our Outlook economists here with us today, but we also do research in the space of food economics, rural America, the environment, and more. And so as a federal statistical agency, and particularly one who conducts a lot of research using a lot of the data that's produced by our sister agencies, we cover the broad spectrum of programs that USDA administers. We've had a productive year so far. Just thus far in fiscal year 2023, we've released 81 publications. These include our signature ERS reports. I'll give you a sampling of some of the topics that we've covered thus far. These are a deep dive into a particular aspect of the agricultural sector. Our Outlook newsletters, which you may be familiar with, a lot of those are coming out on a monthly basis. Some of them are on a quarterly basis. Our Amber Waves feature, this is a more of a magazine style report that we do that reaches a broad stakeholder public audience, takes our research and kind of puts it a little bit more in layperson terms and more. Our economists will also actively participate in the peer-reviewed publication process in order to stay abreast of scientific issues in the field of economics and to contribute to those. And thus far, we've produced 50 journal articles this year. And we've done 4 webinars. These are where we take either a report or a particular data product, and we do a public-facing webinar where we really dig deep into how those data are collected, used, analyzed, and presented, including we've had what we call data training webinars. We really try to make those interactive so people can understand better how to use the data. And we have 2 more planned for this fiscal year. Just a sampling of our ERS reports. This is trying to give you a sense of the broad coverage that we have in our research, everything from organics markets to what's going on in the trade space. We did a report recently on Puerto Rico's agricultural economy, a few really important reports related to rural America and what's going on with the food sector and food access in rural America, which has changed over the last few years, particularly with the pandemic. And then we recently released a report on animal manure and the use of it on farms, which has gotten a lot of attention. This is just one sample of the wide range of reports that we've done this fiscal year. I'll spend a little bit of time talking about some of our data product updates. I said that we're both a consumer and a producer of data. ERS produces about 80 data products every year. And some of those are updated monthly, some are updated less frequently, like on an annual basis. And a lot of these data products are where we're taking data, a lot of it from NASS, combining it or analyzing it and producing it in a particular way for users. These data are available in different manners and methods. Some of them are Excel files that you can download and use directly. Others are maps or charts. And then we're moving more towards trying to make APIs and other applications available so that you can actually tailor our data to what you need. I'll just note particularly the wheat data. We have a new data visualization out. It's on the public-facing Tableau servers that provides a lot of wheat data that you can interact with and download in ways that make sense for you. So this is one of our newest data product updates that I encourage you to take a look at. The others that are listed here are some of our more routine data products that I think tend to be popular with this particular audience that are updated regularly. And again, some of those are available in more of an interactive format. Others are Excel tables that you can go ahead and download and use. I did mention the data visualizations. This is just a few examples of the ways in which we are presenting the data. We have over 60 of these data visualizations on the public Tableau platform. And again, you can go in and kind of select what years or what crops and what you'd like and download different formats of charts and tables for your use. One of our signature products are our charts of note. These come out Monday through Thursday, sometimes Friday as well. Daily, we have an app that you can download for on your phone, and to get this chart, it's one chart from one of our research reports or Outlook reports with about 250 words of text, highlighting a topic of particular interest, and then sends you back to that report if you want to go into a deeper dive and learn a little bit more. And so you can see just from the sampling that I've provided here, everything from maps to pie charts to line graphs, whatever it might be to best communicate the information that we think is most relevant from a particular report. Some emerging issues. So, part of our mission is to anticipate trends and emerging issues in the agricultural sector. And so we're always trying to stay ahead of where things are. And so these are some of the topics that we're either have been exploring and are going into in a little bit more depth, or are potentially new topics. Climate change is a huge priority for this administration and the Secretary of Agriculture, and we're really expanding our research in this space, looking at everything from food access to the use of conservation practices to impacts on trade. We have a lot of research going on in this space. Equity is another really important priority for this department, and so we're working on ways to incorporate data that a lot of it already exists, but perhaps hasn't been explored more fully to better understand the distribution of impacts across the agricultural sector. So for instance, we recently did some work looking at the distribution of the market facilitation program payments across race and ethnicity in the sector with some interesting results. Food price inflation is obviously a really hot topic right now. We've been doing a lot of work on egg prices and food prices in general. Happy to answer questions about things in that space. I won't go through the whole list, but these are some of the more emerging topics that we're starting to explore that are either relevant for the agricultural sector, important to the administration's priorities, and such. So just last but not least, like my sister agencies, lots of ways to follow us and stay abreast of things and look forward to your questions as well. Thank you.
Do you want me to try it?
Oh,
So
got
you-
the magical
all right.
microphone.
At least distance myself
I'm
from
going to
that
hold
one.
this one. There, so.
Awesome. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Michael Walter. I am the Deputy Director of the Safety Net Division, which is a slight change since the last time I was here. I was formerly the Data Officer in Farm Service Agency's Office of Management and Strategy, but I've taken the opportunity to move back towards the policy side. And like most things in FSA, if you don't leave, you still get a lot of the duties that you used to have, which leads me here. And the division that I'm part of has a lot of the key pieces that we are involved in today. We manage the policy for acreage reporting, farm records, the big crop disaster and livestock disaster programs, and the ARC PLC program. So it's still, and they haven't replaced me. So they sent me along today, which I'm very happy to be here. So I wanted to provide a few agency updates, and then we'll talk a little bit more specifically about data and what FSA is currently doing on that front. So starting with the recent news, as of yesterday, we announced the sign up for the Grassland Conservation Reserve Program sign up. So that program has been going on for 4 or 5 years. Last year was the largest year of acres enrollment, but that targets the more traditional, permanent grassland programs and being able to get that into CRP. We just concluded the general CRP sign up, which was one of the largest signups we have. We haven't done all the ranking that goes through that process. They're doing all that behind the scenes at this point. But last year we had very successful CRP signups, and we're sitting around 23 million acres enrolled, with about 1.9 million acres that are going to expire this year. So they're aggressively, working with CRP to try to get to our max 27 million acre cap for that program. Yep. All right.
Oh, I didn't have slides. Oh, okay. You don't want me to. Can you still hear me on this one? Oh, okay. Doesn't sound as loud in my ears, so I wasn't sure. So that's the most current change that we have. We also have a couple new programs in the works that they're not quite out the door yet, but one is a emergencies grain storage program, and that is to help farmers impacted with the severe storms back from December of 2021 through August of 2022. And it provides cost share to help build grain and drying facilities to kind of help address some of those issues with the damaged grain infrastructure that we had out there. So that program hopes to be released pretty soon, and will run through a sign-up period to the end of December 29th of 2023. The next one up is a rice production program. This helps some rice producers, and this is one of those that we're running a data-driven report. I'll talk about ERP in a minute, but we've gone in the last couple of programs of trying to use our own internal data to streamline the sign-up processes for our producers. When we have that data inside our own house, why would we ask somebody how many acres of rice they had if we already know how many acres of rice we had? So we're able to use our own data, pre-populate those application forms, and then distribute them to the producers to just save our office's time, save money, and save our producers' time, which is one of the most important things. So that's another one. We have 3 or 4 programs working through the regulation pieces. The next one is organic dairy marketing assistance. So this one really is going to help target small organic farms that have been faced with some unique challenges and high costs over the last couple of years. And so we really want to provide some payments to cover a portion of their estimated marketing costs for 2023. We don't really know the final spending on this, but as the program goes along and gets further announcement, more details will be able to come out. And the last one that's really in the works is on-farm food safety expenses for specialty crops. We have over $200 million in this program. This program's been out for the last 2 years, and it runs through this year. So we work with those state departments and food safety, reimbursed costs for food safety certifications for those producers. So I think we have some improvements on that program this year that is probably a little too early to announce, but I think it will help increase our participation and provide better better coverage to our producers out there. And the next one, now we move into things that we currently have ongoing. So we're continuing to wrap up our natural disaster assistance, our ERP program. This we rolled out in 2 phases. The first phase we rolled out with using our own non-insured adjustment and RMA's crop insurance records. And this was a program, again, that we were able to use our own data to populate the forms, calculate a payment. The producer agrees to it, and validate that everything is correct. It really streamlined the process. So the phase 2 really revolves around everybody that didn't get a crop insurance or a non-NAP payment from the agency. So those other losses that came in, and that's a little bit more of a manual approach. But kind of a new process for this program, we went to a revenue-based. That's, it's been a little bit of change for some people. We've gotten some feedback, some positive and some negative feedback, because it is a change and it looks at things more inclusively. It looks at across the farm rather than a crop by crop basis. But it is really designed, the hope was to streamline, and I think it has streamlined it in a lot of ways, and make it easier for the producer to do and cover all crops and not have some of those normal issues of one crop versus the other in those targets. So that sign up runs currently through, we started it back in January 23rd and will run through June 2nd. And the other piece of that is the PARP program, or the Pandemic Assistance Revenue Program, which was really the capstone program on all of our pandemic assistance. So again, this one is another market revenue program, a producer revenue program. Sorry about that. We have a lot of programs. So again, it looks at their revenue and how it was impacted by the pandemic from base year of their operation, or what they considered a benchmark year, into they considered the payment year. And then it takes that comparison and makes them a payment. So both those programs are currently ongoing, rolling out. We've also concluded back in March the sign up for the ARC-PLC program. So that's one of our main Title I Farm Bill programs that runs annually. And another successful sign up where we signed up over 100% of the activity that we had in the prior year. And the last thing is, farm programs isn't the only one doing improvements. Our farm loan programs have been doing quite a bit. One of their biggest things that they're touting right now is some improvements for the process for the producers. They have cut their application process down from 29 pages to 13, which I've never actually walked through their application, but if you cut any application from 29 pages down to 13, you've made the world a whole lot easier for anybody that's trying to use those forms, and yourself as the employee trying to go back through there. And they've also launched some loan assistance tools out there on the farmers.gov page that was mentioned earlier to really help those producers from home get that idea, get this process started. And really the hope is that we reduce errors, make the process easier, and when they get into the office, everything just goes smoother and quicker for those farmers. More specifically from the data front, we continued in these prior meetings. I've talked about our work that we've done to modernize. And the good news is we've taken those first steps. We're moving off of our legacy databases and into the department's EDAP platform. And through that process, we've moved our first sets of data. I could say that they've successfully got there. It's just the first steps, but after working on it for 2 straight years, it's very satisfying to see that that has been moved over and that started. And we started with our ERP program because it's an ongoing, current program of one of the first ones, and the core data, which is the customer data. So we've continued to go there, and then, obviously we're going to take the lessons learned and make a couple tweaks of those programs. And then we've come up with a list of the rest of the programs in the order of which we hope to complete that in the next couple of years. We've also continued with our commitment to more public-facing dashboards. When the ERP and the PART program both rolled out, they went with public-facing dashboards to put that information out there. Our FOIA office loves it. It's a lot less questions. It just gets information out there to the producers. From an ARC PLC standpoint, that's going to be our next one up. We released a nice ARC PLC dashboard internally to our employees, and we're going to take part of that, and they're in the process of flipping it. So we'll be able to show everybody the enrollment stats over the last 5 years since the start of the Farm Bill. You're going to be able to see how many acres of corn are in PLC versus ARC, how many total acres are enrolled, and then you can kind of see the enrollment data as it goes on. Much of that information is on our website today, but it's in 4 or 5 different spreadsheets. So we're kind of bringing it all together into a dashboard in which this is a lot more visibly appealing than the spreadsheets that we have. So that should roll out. Hopefully it goes out there next month. There's one other piece in its way from a production standpoint, and then that'll be out. So, and we do have that dedication of more and more. I know I got a question last time about crop reporting public facing. That's determined to be a little harder than we initially envisioned of pulling that together, but that is still something in the process. I can't really make a guarantee that will roll out in August like we had hoped, but it is something that we do want to get out there to just have that information much more readily available. And again, we have it in a spreadsheet today, but those spreadsheets, they're a little hard to digest for those answers that you want. And with that, I'll pass it to Jason.
Thank you. My name is Jason Carwell. I am the Deputy Director with Livestock, Poultry, and Grain Market News, here representing AMS. Obviously, AMS is a pretty big agency. We're just one small part in the market resources and analysis part, and specifically, I'm going to focus on market news today, but I do encourage you to look into some of the other offerings that AMS has, as we're about 4,000 employees strong and do a lot of different things. So, but as I said, specifically today, I'm talking about market news and just highlighting some of the more recent updates we've done. We as a division across all the commodity areas try to focus on putting as much commodity specific data out as we can as soon as possible. We have about 1,500 reports that we update between 400 and 500 times a day on average. So a lot of the focus we have from our customers is trying to get that data as soon as they can and to be able to use it. So that's been a focus of us the last few years, is to try to modernize those processes and make that data available through different avenues for people to access it and use it. So on our voluntary side, that has been the goal the last few years, is moving a lot of our reports and data sets into a more updated system with more offerings, including an API and some other interfaces. We have about 735 unique data reports available in that system now. We're planning to do probably around 300 more before the end of 2023 to finally get some of that specialty crops information and some of the other ones that we've been working on to get moved in there. For the mandatory side, that does go through a different unique system, but we do have about 140 different data sets available on that side as well. The mandatory reauthorization did get punted again earlier this year. It's been renewed or delayed through the end of September. We don't know if that reauthorization is going to happen in 2023 yet or not. So stay tuned to that, and hopefully soon we can get through that process and get that done. One of the other newer offerings we have rolled out in early 2022, we rolled out a mobile app that users can use to access all of our reports and information. We will be rolling version 3 of that app out late next month. That we're putting a lot of updates in the user experience and trying to identify some areas of interest and make it a little easier to navigate that. We've had some good success with that. We've had about 12,000 downloads of the app, which we're very happy with. We didn't quite expect that much so far. So I don't know if any of you have used that, but it is available in both of the Android and the Apple app stores, mobile application stores. What's that? Is that any better? All right. Well, hopefully you guys could hear what I said so far, but I'm gonna keep moving on. One of the other things we've been working on the last couple of years is an organic initiative. We're focusing on trying to gather more organic data and be able to put that out in our reports. We're in a process of working with some outside entities to help us get in touch with more organic producers and get some trends and commodity information that we can put out on some reports consistently. And we're going to continue to work on that, I would expect, over the next year or two to try to get some additional and new reports out and make those consumable through our current avenues. Some commodity specific updates for cotton and tobacco market news. We're kind of gearing towards the end of the cotton season right now, but cotton is always dedicating a lot of time to watching the trends from the cotton bales they're grading and making sure that any weather or insect or whatever kind of information is impacting that as they move along through the season is available. And they do put out special reports that provides that information to users. For dairy market news, they recently added some dairy cream multiple prices and some other information to their reports, as well as some updates to their retail reporting to try to capture some newer items that have shown up in the stores recently. Specialty crops market news has also added some additional resources to their retail report, and they also earlier this year released the first version of a retail hemp report that is available to the public now. And I believe that's a weekly report they're putting out over there. Specialty Crops Market News also has some interactive webinars that they are releasing. I think the first one's actually this week on how to use some of their information and how they collect it and report some of that out. One of the biggest things that we've been working on in livestock, poultry, and grain market news is our cattle contract library pilot program. We spent quite a bit of time setting that up last year, and we did release the first report in February. And then we followed it up a few weeks later with dipping our toes into the dashboard avenue. We do have an interactive dashboard for the cattle contract library, and that is available on our website now that users can use to look at the current data and anything we've published previously. That cattle contract library is still a pilot program through the end of September that we're watching closely to see if that gets put in permanently. And we plan to do some updates to that if it is. And we're also planning to do quite a few more dashboards moving into 2024 on a lot of the data we provide, just to give another avenue for people to access that information as quickly as possible. So like I said, for AMS, we're just one small part. We have other data offerings from transportation and marketing, the analytics division, and also our local programs that provide some more information that way. So definitely check us out, and all of our information is available in the booklet. And we do have staff available virtually today to answer any questions you guys might have. So thank you.
See if we can make these work. Let's see if yours is working. Oh, let's see how that works. So give us feedback.
Can you hear me? My name is Jerry Campo. I'm with the U.S. Census Bureau. As always, I want to thank USDA for inviting us to be on this panel every year. I am a section supervisor overseeing foods and textiles for the International Trade Indicator Microanalysis Branch. Our largest role is in putting together the monthly FT 900, which is a joint release with Stats Canada and the Bureau of Economic Analysis. Our next review is actually release is May 4th. So that is indeed the data you're looking for. And I'm looking forward to a great afternoon. Thanks.
Here we go. All right. Can you hear me now? Great. We'll switch over and get started with some questions. So appreciate all the panelists. Nice job. So we'll get started with some questions. And Kelly, I don't know, maybe you and Tony can share a mic. How about that? Is our mics working okay on the tables then? All right, great. And so if you have questions here in the room, just turn on your mic and we'll go from there. I'm going to kind of intersperse questions from in the room with those from online. So looks like, ooh, we got a few already up here. So that's a good thing. Thank you, Patrick. Oh, yes, thank you. This modern world, I tell you. Okay. All right, Patrick, are you ready? I've got one online. I'm going to give you the first. I'm going to give you the first go, and then we'll maybe come back to the room because I bet a few of you will have a question here in the room. But this is from Joseph Lardy, and he says, "You currently list export sales to unknown. I cannot fathom why you still use it. Certainly, there is a known party country on the other side of the trade. So why do we keep using unknown?"
Thanks. This question has come up here in the past, and our regulations allow for exporters to report sales to unknown destinations to us when they don't know the final destination of the shipment or where the product is going. And we understand that there are a number of circumstances within the trade where that might be the case. And so as long as our regulations allow for that, then we have to continue to allow for it under the program. We believe that the most important thing is that we get information from the exporters about the sale, the quantity as quickly as possible. So timeliness matters. So the industry understands that that product has been committed. If we were to delay reporting until every detail is known, then that takes information and data away from the market. So ultimately, the exporters do come back to us and change the destination to the country when they know it. And so, and ultimately also before the product is shipped, obviously a destination has to be declared. So we're trying to operate the program for, the most transparency for the market. And I think something we can continue to think about, but for the moment, I don't think we're going to change that right now.
All right, thank you. And by the way, for those in the virtual audience, if you see Joe DeCampo, whenever you see Patrick answering a question, that's because it's shooting just over the top, the camera shooting just over the top of Patrick's head. Patrick, if necessary, I'll let you have the podium. How about that? But most of the time this works. All right. How about in the room? Question? Yes.
Am I on?
You are on.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you USDA for putting together this meeting. We always appreciate hearing your updates and US Census as well. My first question is for NASS. We are working on updating our API for NASS, and the documentation that we found online is dated 2013. And I was wondering if you could either direct us to some more updated information or if you had an idea of when an update might come out.
All right. I assume that you're working with QuickStats API, is that correct? Okay, yeah, that we're moving into the new system too. So we're going to have a new API system. There is new documentation. It's with the Swagger interface too, and milk production is available. So that's really what we're moving into with QuickStats. The API, as we're moving into new technology, we don't really have plans to upgrade that or anything because we're moving into the new cloud-based environment that we're releasing our estimates. But if there's anything specific that doesn't work now or doesn't function, of course, we'll fix that or do anything we need to do with that.
So what's your timeline for everything to be moved to the new API?
Well, like I say, as I mentioned, this year, we're really going to focus on field crops and economics. So then it's, everything is we have a large data products, a lot of data goes out from NASS, including the census products. So it's going to take several years to get everything out, but we're working as fast as we can. By the end of this year, we're hoping to have, the field crops economics. And as we do more, we should see similarities in other release products where we can get things out faster. The more we get out, we should see an increase in the speed of what we can roll out faster. We'd love to have it as soon as we can, believe me, and move into the new system because, we're going to maintain 2 systems as long as there's a data need for that. We're not going to cut the data users off so that you don't have something that works. And as we get more documentation and user information in the new system, will provide that as well. So we're looking at a few years down the road, but we're doing it as fast as we can.
Thank you.
A little bit of that's funds available too. If we are able to obtain more funds for modernization, we'll be able to go faster. And we kind of orchestrated our contracting to reflect that, but it's availability of funds. So, but we are very keen to move forward on it. Okay, another question in the room? Yes, in the back corner there.
Hi, all. This is Chase Bender at Macquarie. Thanks for putting on a great program so far. There appears to be more fragmentation of data globally. I mean, for example, the world's largest wheat exporter is no longer releasing public trade data, and we've seen recently a dramatic reduction in the number of international traders operating in that country. Given the fact that a substantial percentage of market participants rely on the USDA as the standard bearer for supply and demand data, is there any concern at the USDA about this? Is the USDA doing anything differently to try to maintain the best possible forecasts? I'm curious as your thoughts on that.
Mark, do you want to start us out?
Yeah, I'll start out. Yeah, I think clearly things have gotten more challenging in the past couple of years. Obviously, USDA is always trying to, maintain its best possible forecasts. But maybe I'll turn it over to Mark Simone and Mike Jewison for some kind of on the ground perspective. They covering wheat and coarse grains. Some of the things that they're thinking about with regard to Russia and others. Go ahead.
Yes, with regard to, y'all hear me? Wonderful. Regard to Russia, yeah, they haven't put out their export data for start of the year. That's obviously an issue. We do use customs data. We do use port loading data, vessel lineups. We do utilize a private vendor. A multitude of sources. Ideally, there'd be only one source, but here we are using multiple sources and trying to basically triangulate or even use more sources. And FAS, GCAD do a great job at that. I got to tip my hat to them, but it's not easy.
Okay, I saw one more. I'm going to take one more question in the room. Sir, did you have your about to put your hand up there? Yeah.
Nathan Aronson with the Nebraska Association of County Officials. And this question is for NASS. The Census of Agriculture has a new internet question. I think it's question 26, talking about broadband access. What level of kind of geographic granularity do you expect to use when you report that data?
Thank you for that question. That, along with all the other census products, we'll be publishing at the county level. The Census of Agriculture is the only really tool that we have for the county level information, and that's done every 5 years. So it'll be at the county level, like all the other data products in Census of Agriculture. We also have a release called the technology use or computer use that's done every other year, and that is at the state level that has information about that, the same type of information, internet use as well. So that's also available.
If I could follow up, do you plan to coordinate any of the data you receive with the FCC as they try and update their broadband map?
Well, we don't. We're aware of the FCC, but we really don't coordinate our data products. With the being our federal statistical agency doing things independently, we don't jointly have we don't usually do joint publications or things like that with the FCC.
we are aware of that. And really what we're talking about, NASS surveys farms. So it's really the broadband on farms versus like a coverage of rural areas or things like that. That would be a different scope than what, NASS is publishing. It's really, we interview the farmers and what broadband is on farms, not necessarily urban areas or urban regions, the rural regions, I mean.
I think the fundamental problem with, creating they may use the data to help inform their maps, but as that we have to maintain confidentiality of respondents. And so being able to integrate that data directly could be problematic with FCC. The other thing I'll say is there are data from the American Community Survey. Also, they're very similar questions. And I don't know the level of granularity in which they publish. Don, you want to go ahead, and then I'm going to go back online.
Good afternoon. I'm Don Close. I'm the Chief Research and Analytics Officer with Terrain. My comment is towards AMS. And I would like to give my compliment to the job that AMS has done in developing the cattle contract library. If you go back to the listening session that was held in Kansas City, and I think was spring of 22, 21. But if you, and that recording of that meeting is available. But if you go back and listen to the request of the stakeholders that were given in that meeting, and then go back and look at what AMS was able to put into the cattle contract library, they've done an impeccable job. I think it's really good work. The second part, I have a question on a different area. In just the last couple of weeks, there's been a huge change in the report of the number of imported cattle from Mexico on weekly. And they've aggregated a bunch of different categories. I don't see initially the weekly data we were getting on steer and heifer imports to the new data set, how to link the two. And am I missing something?
Well, first of all, thank you for the comments on the CCL. I definitely can't take any credit for that. We had a really good team on that, and those meetings were in 2022. So we were able to turn that around much more quickly than we anticipated. And it's good to hear that information is useful, and obviously we're hoping that continues on. As far as your question about the reports, my understanding was all of that data should be there. I don't know if I have a couple of people that should be online. I don't know if they can answer to where you can hear or not, but
yep, we can bring them up.
But if there are specifics in there that may be not clear, then maybe we can work with you to help you get that. I don't know, Michael, are you on? Are you able to answer anything on that? Or Brittany?
Yeah, this is Brittany. Hi, Don. Our goal was to improve efficiencies there, where we were releasing like 9 different reports on the various exports and imports crossing the border down there. So our goal was to improve it to get a consistent data flow across all regions. So if there's data on this new report that you think is missing, please reach out specifically to me. Give me a call when you get back in, and we can walk through it just to make sure I understand we're on the same page.
All right, perfect. I need to talk to you on another project, and I will give you a call when I get back on.
Great, thank you, Don.
Okay, can I come back to you? Is it related to this question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
To Don's point, the issue that I found with it, USDA ERS, because I'm following it on a weekly basis as well. When you go back and compare the previous format, the weekly format, to your new report, the totals are not matching up on a weekly basis. So while I'm guessing it looks like you split out steer and heifers by Mexico, Texas, New Mexico, and I think Arizona. I'm guessing, and trying to figure out how that adds up. The totals for the week are not matching up with what you were previously publishing under the old format. And so I think I got over the year, I think I only got 2 weeks to actually match up to your totals.
So I think one of the issues with the new format is prior to this new format, we were including roping cattle, roping steers in with feeder steers. And this the new format is breaking them out. So once again, email the address in the bottom of that report. We can get that straightened out with you. There was one hiccup one week in there, but otherwise it should all total out.
Okay. I am going to take a couple questions from the web here, or from our virtual folks. Does FSA, but I'm pretty sure it does FAS. Hello, does FAS consider putting attaché estimates into the database, into database format? Thank you. And that was from Natalia. Yeah, one more time. All right, how about that? All right, does FAS rather consider putting attaché estimates into a database format?
Thanks for the question. No, we have never considered database in the attaché forecasts. They aren't official USDA forecasts. That's a report from the country is what they're seeing on the ground. We take that into the WASDE process, but we have not found a need to database those estimates. Thanks for the question.
Okay, I want to go again. This is from Dale Burkholtz, also for Patrick. When are you going to put a more visible link to the iPad division on the FAS homepage? I would guess there are a lot of users that aren't familiar with this information or how to find it. I typically do a Google search in lieu of trying to get to the info from the FAS page.
I want to thank Dale for that question. This was raised before and gives me opportunity to report that we have actually linked the iPad data to the main FAS homepage. If you go under our data and analysis tab, you'll see a link for geospatial data or geospatial resources. If you click on that link, it takes you directly to all of those great products, including the Crop Explorer and the GATA system, and a whole host of other information that we use to do our crop forecast. So take a look and please continue to provide feedback if we can make things more useful.
Also, Patrick, yeah, we're going to keep going here. This is from Bill Nelson. For Patrick at FAS. At the October meeting, there was a question about the removal of UN data from GATS. My recollection was that plans were for that data to return. Please update. Thank you.
Yes, so I'll have to apologize for this one. Yes, we have provided that data in the past. The UN changed their means of transmitting the data to us, so we kind of got broken, and we've been working with our IT team to reestablish access to that data. Has not gone as quickly as we would hope, but we're still working on it, and hopefully we can restore it as soon as possible. But we definitely want to get it up there as quickly as we can.
All right, you're off the hook for this next one, Patrick. Where can someone find federal crop insurance data that would include items such as liabilities, premiums, and/or losses, and maybe the associated states, counties, and crops? I think we have Michael Hibbs. Is that right? Michael, are you out there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me, Joe?
Yeah, hear you fine. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thanks for having us. I'm also joined by Swan Farm at RMA. Can give a brief walkthrough. Near the top of the public website, which is rma.usda.gov, there is a drop down called Tools, and within that area, my video might be giving some feedback, so I'm going to go off video. Within that area, you'll find all the different tools applications available. For this specific question, though, on crop insurance, I'd point the user to the summary of business link, where you're going to find crop insurance data. There are several summarized reports, just one-click reports at various levels, state, county, crop. things of that nature. Down near midway on that page, there is a link to an application, but I think for this specific question, I'd point the user to another set of links that'll take you to some downloadable data files. And these would include things like liabilities, premiums, losses. They're going to be at different levels, state, county, crop. Now, along the way, there are email links because it's kind of hard to just tell someone how to get there. So if you're out there playing around and you do have questions, please send us an email, and we're always happy to assist.
Awesome, thank you. Marissa, what time is break? I haven't went past 2 win? Oh, I got plenty of time. All right, well, here we go. All right, next question comes from Rachel Berry, Dairy Farmers of America. We're looking for information on the updating for the DMC, so I'm decision tool. So is that the dairy margin tool? I'm guessing this is for you, Mike Walter. How frequently is pricing updated for this decision tool?
That is my problem, but one I don't have an answer to, so I'll have to follow up. So it's not my division. I'm familiar with the program, but not how often they post that data. So we can follow up with her in a written response.
Okay.
That'd be great.
And I think some of the data that that tool uses is NASS pricing data, prices received by farmers, if I remember correctly. So, all right, for Kelly at ERS. Love the feed grain data query product. Have been hoping for 10 years for the same for oil seeds. Any possibility that could be seen in the future? And that's from Bill Nelson.
I'm looking to my ERS colleagues. Jen, do you want to say a few words about that?
All right, hopefully folks can hear me. I think that's a great idea. And I think a lot of innovation starts with these great ideas and suggestions here. And over time, we've tried to incorporate some from folks like the gentleman sitting next to me and more. So I think it's something that we could explore. It always takes resources. So I think it needs to be balanced against the other tasks that we have to support our mission, but we'll take it under consideration. The individual who asked this question is certainly familiar with the wide variety of tables that we have in the oil crops. So it sounds like they're wanting an advancement in the functionality, something that you can search down. So I think that's a great thing for us to look into. I think our data deputy is also online, and it may have some additional insight to share on the feasibility of doing that. So perhaps I can ask Molly Burris to add some additional comments if she's.
Looks like she's ready to, she's queued up. Here you go.
Okay.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Well, Bill, you've read our mind because this has been a topic of internal discussion. So this is very much something that we would like as well. But as Jen mentioned, we are part of a larger organization, and there are some modernization efforts going on with the website right now. So to my knowledge, we are in a holding pattern on many of these wonderful ideas that, like you present, for an API. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to do 2 more from the web, and then we'll come back to the room. So get ready. This is from Bruno Arthur. Please provide the URL links where we can find the published research papers of USDA. So Kelly, I'll let you take that, and then I might have one item to add.
Sure. So am I on ers.usda.gov, and there's a bar at the top, and one of them is publications. You click on that, it's a drop down, and it'll give you everything going back that we've digitized to like 1973 or so. You can search by topic, author, type of publication. You should be able to find all of that there. That's for the ERS specific reports, including the Outlook reports.
Yeah, and most of our deeper dives at NASS, we publish the data we publish and we document it. We do other research papers documenting about, statistical research to improve our data collection and such. And that too is on our website. The other thing I would say is that, the National Ag Library also has a wealth of links and such to, everything from across the department and a lot of other journals. So, when you think about ARS scientists and so forth, there are a lot of items get published by USDA. Let's see. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your presentations. Very informative. This is from Sam Bartz. He says, I have a question for ERS. When looking into emerging issues like climate change and crop disease and the like, is there any research into the changing stocks of seafood products, like in the king crab harvest hold, and other issues dealing with the effects of climate change on seafood production, increase in disease, and the subsequent decrease in harvesting? Thanks again. Kelly?
Yeah, great. Thanks for the question. And I'll give part of an answer, but there may be other panelists who would like to add to this. So aquaculture is a kind of an emerging issue that ERS is exploring. We've long had an aquaculture data product, although that hasn't been updated in a while because the data are challenging to use and to report out on like we historically have. But we do participate in a larger aquaculture community looking at aquaculture issues across the industry. That work is done with our colleagues at ARS, the Ag Research Service, as well as NOAA. And there is currently an aquaculture economic development plan. I believe the public comment period or the Federal Register notice on that recently closed, but we're looking to update that aquaculture economic development plan. That doesn't exactly answer your question that you've asked, but that's some of the work that we have going on in that space.
All right. Thank you for that.
The census of aquaculture.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
And also to mention the census of aquaculture is ongoing. But one thing to keep in mind, the definition of aquaculture is that the commodity has to be either maintained or value added or contained. So it can't be just commercially or wild caught. So that's a key definition as far as the census of aquaculture and the NASS scope of what aquaculture is. So if it's commercial fishery, things like that, that's outside of the scope. If it's, for instance, like seeding maybe oyster beds, things like that, or contained seafood or fisheries, that would be aquaculture as far as farming and related to farming, and that's the scope where we would fall in with the NASS data products.
Yep. We often look at the North American Industrial Classification System for sort of where we end and where other folks might pick up. So I want to come back to the room for a little bit. Questions? Bill laughed. I come to Omaha and you don't have a question for me? I mean, really? Data deputy. I don't know.
Welcome to Omaha.
Thank
Glad
you.
you're all here. Thanks to AMS for a lot of timely response from your employees. We appreciate that. And you do a great job of collecting data. EIA, I don't know who's on the phone there, but they brought out new information on production of or feedstock usage and a breakout between biodiesel and renewable diesel for soybean oil, which is really fantastic. The thing we're missing, the really big piece we're missing, and I brought this up last year, is how much inventory there is at these plants of feedstock, because that's really important. Joe, somewhere in your labyrinth, there's codes that tell us how much what the renewable diesel code is for imports and exports. And I've really struggled to find those two codes. I can't find those two codes. The drought monitor has not had Oklahoma on it for wheat for like 2 years. I don't know what Oklahoma did to NASS, but I wish they'd fix that. And then was my last grievance. Oh, Mark, are you going to give us Hartwood Spring and Durham projections in May? Because that's what I heard. You're going to do detailed balance sheets beginning in May.
We're going to change the format of the table beginning in May, but we're not changing the timing of the new year forecast.
So there won't be anything for 23-24 by class in May. No, so confused.
Right.
So there will be a 2023 hard red spring projection on May 12th. There will be a hard red spring in Durham by class projection on May 12th, released to the public. Okay. Thank you.
That comes in July, right? Right.
All right, so maybe repeat Mark's response, because if you would, Mark, because the mic wasn't on. I'm not sure our virtual audience would have heard it. You're on, but Mark wasn't.
Oh.
My class tables don't come out until July.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not May.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to try to go backwards here. I think you're giving me too much credit that I could remember all of those questions, but I'll try. I think Joe, he had a question for you about an export item.
Yeah, on our census website, we do have a Schedule B search engine. You can type in a word description, it'll populate what the Schedule B code is. And then import codes are actually maintained by the International Trade Commission. So whatever you find on the Schedule B side, you can find it on the HTS site, because the first 6 digits will be the same.
Okay. Wish me luck.
Well, I bet Joe has an email address if you don't find it.
I believe he has it.
Yeah, you think? Okay. I want to go to EIA. I think Julie Harris, maybe. Are you out there?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yep, hear you just fine.
Great, excellent. So, right, the question, but first of all, thanks for the shout out for the feedstocks. We're so happy that we can add something of interest to you all. And I know that there's interest in the soybean oil stocks. I mean, I've heard that already. And just a reminder that, we have a cycle for getting approval for our survey forms, and we're just now getting approval through OMB for changes that we're making that will be implemented imminently. And that is not on, was not part of that package. So it'll be 3 years before we can even, make survey forms changes. So, keep asking, and we can see if we can make that happen in the next round.
So the other, this is a related question, Julie, while I have you on here, and it may actually get the same answer. Can NASS add stocks of soy oil or other veg oils and fats, for example, at biofuel plants to the monthly fats and oils report, or can EIA add that to their monthly feedstock usage survey? Kind of the same question, yes?
Right. I don't know what NASA's plans are, but that's the same question to me.
Yeah. Okay. We don't have intentions right now of adding that to that question to our current survey.
This is really, really important, because the stocks of oil at the end of the 22-23 crop year are about less than 2 billion pounds. And these plants could have in excess of 3 billion pounds of stocks. So it's important to know whether they have them or not in terms of market functionality. So there's a 3-year window for NASS to be a hero.
We'll keep that in mind. All right. You come out with a couple more questions. Did we cover them all? I think we missed. It seemed like I missed one here, at least one. Drought monitor.
I don't know why Oklahoma isn't on that chart. I'll have to check with our weather guys. Mark, any idea? Right. Right.
Is Brad out? Is he out
No, I
there?
don't
No,
think
not
he's-
today. Okay. All right. Check the transcript. Okay. I think Jerry Goodell has his hand up, so I'm gonna go to Jerry.
It's a related question, particularly about the EIA lady that's here, and that it continues to be baffling to me why it takes so long to get some of the information about the final details of our ethanol data and finally get the amount of let's just say the amount of gasoline that's poured into a can, into your fuel, into the tank car so it doesn't blow up. It takes them at least 2 months after the USDA gets their stuff. It's another month that they put their stuff out. Right now, I'm not sure we've got January at this point available to finalize the total number of actual EIA output of ethanol that we have on the finalized stage. It seems like we could get that tied up a little closer here, at least get the thing tied up with the output that is putting out by EIA about what they say is their final. We get our corn usage and we ultimately get some of the monthlies, but the finalized data is so far behind at EIA. It's been an issue I've talked with other people in the past on this, and it hasn't improved. So is there any ideas from the person in the speaker here as to when that might be updated and tightened up?
Julie, do you have any comment for us?
Right. So, I mean, we do publish ethanol production on a weekly basis in our weekly data. And yes, you're right, that's not final. The monthly data come out, after the fact. Now, January is out there. We published the January data on March 31st.
But you didn't put out the amount of slippage of gasoline to finalize the actual total. That comes out 3 weeks after the published data. It comes out just nearly at the end of the month for the 1 year decision. So that's also a part of the final total. If you're going to pour gasoline in there to make sure it doesn't blow up, that's not ethanol that's actually being produced. That's my question.
Yeah, I guess I'm not really sure what you're referring to.
The gasoline necessary to denature the
Your
ethanol.
denaturing term, you want to use that? Sorry.
That the net, I think Jerry's looking for when.
All the data that we publish on a monthly basis in the Petroleum Supply Monthly that has to do with ethanol and gasoline production, come out, 2 months after the fact. And that's what we publish.
The big delay still is there in what you just talked about. Yeah, I understand your two months, but I also understand that there's this 3-week delay to get the denaturant total. Now it's pretty reasonably consistent, but not always from there. And it seems like that would be not that hard a factor to be able to have it there as we look at the numbers that you publish for a month. That's my peeve. I'm not sure it's going to be settled today.
Right.
Consider and think about how the user out there wants to finally get his books taken care of. And it's a pain in the ass to wait that long and wait 3 more weeks after you still tell me a number.
Okay, yeah. I don't have an answer to that.
And I'm sure you understand that the denaturant is actually published 3 weeks later, and sometimes you're guessing as to what day it is. There's no standard on that, by the way.
Okay, well, I think we've brought up the point, and so they can consider it. Back in the corner.
Dovetailing on the EIA questions, so we have biodiesel import and export data from the EIA. We have renewable diesel import data. We don't have renewable diesel export data, and given that renewable diesel production is already bigger than biodiesel production, it's about to be substantially bigger. Are there plans to start publishing that or collecting that data anytime soon?
Joseph?
No, I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question?
Yep. Exporting diesel.
Yeah, so this is a question for EIA. So
For EIA, I'm sorry.
Okay, so we haven't been reporting exports of renewable diesel because we don't have an HTS code that's unique to renewable diesel. So we don't have, and we get that data from our friends at Census.
Yeah, I'm not sure off the top of my head exactly which numbers we do and don't have for renewable or non-renewed diesel. Just go back and check.
Yeah, so Joseph, I don't know if you know this piece of detail, but you know, renewable diesel and biodiesel come from two separate processes. And so the renewable diesel is becoming much more popular as a way of being produced. And so I think there's an interest in that particular, because it can be used direct, you can pump it directly into a tank and use it without any blending or anything. So that's probably part of the motivation as production ramps up. Anyway, that's probably the reason for the request for the code.
Okay.
Okay. Elsewhere in the room? Yes, sir. Good to see you.
Glad to have you in Omaha.
Yeah.
Hi, Bill. Bill and I only see each other at pizza places about every 10 years. We both live here. All right, Alan Brigler Marketing Management. I'd like to revisit the Russia-Ukraine situation again and how World Outlook Board in particular is handling the supply and demand between those two countries. I mean, you've got provinces that are being taken over. You've got well-documented cases of grain being stolen and moved to Russia. You've got, you did a study a couple of months ago that showed that the production was probably less than the Russians were claiming. But could you kind of explain how you're handling that situation?
Mark, you want to give some insight? And Mike?
There you go. I think they're battery powered, so it could be that the battery. Yeah, oh, there we go.
You're aware of the differences between what USDA is and what Rostat is in terms of production. It's largely primarily on yield. For USDA, we did some analysis, both analysis for remote sensing and weather-based yield regression and conditions. This for the past crop year in Russia were not as good as 2017, but they and so we had reservations, and there's precedent to USDA not taking every foreign government's production numbers. We did this for South America oilseeds production. We didn't take it for India in 2015. We didn't take it for India this year. So there's that difference, and I'm sure you're aware of it, and we've stated our reasons. And of course, we don't take Crimea, and Rostat does. We also don't take the areas that are annexed by Russia, those 4 oblasts. For Ukraine, what's your question? are they still counting the grain that was stolen and taken to Russia? And are they, how solid are data sources within Ukraine? For Ukraine, we've got, the first estimate was a preliminary estimate. They're supposed to come out with a final estimate. It was supposed to come out in March. It hasn't yet, hasn't come out in April. As far as we know, it does not include annexed areas, occupied oblasts. So no, it's a difficult situation, admittedly. Yeah, I don't trust the numbers from either one of those countries at the moment for that reason. But okay, how are you handling the? There's been reports that some of it's being exported illicitly. Unflagged vessels. How do you quantify that? It's difficult. I mean, it's a lot of problems. So did it leave the country or not? Pardon? So did it leave the country or not? There's been reports that they turned off their transponders. What country it actually goes to. We don't have anything to verify where it actually ended up. So it's a difficult situation for us, admittedly. When we will actually get everything worked out, who knows? Thank you. When will the conflict end? Joanna or Mike? Sorry, can't tell you that. Okay. It's classified. Michael, jump in there.
The only thing I would add, that's a great question. Obviously, as Mark points out, it's a fluid situation. And I think the question before about trade data sources, I mean, I think a lot of folks in here may not realize that even for countries for which we have reliable data, such as China, at least we think it is, right? We're still looking at exporter data. There's trade as it fits together in the world is never perfect empirically, right? And that situation has just been compounded by the fact that you have a conflict now. I will say on the flip side that, for example, in the case of Ukrainian corn, we do have more transparency of what's flowing out of the Black Sea relative to before the conflict. But in terms of the commingling of grain, potentially, it's tough to disentangle that. So, and of course, the amount of what's potentially commingled and stolen, if you will, that's also a subjective kind of question, right? That's not, I mean, we capture it insofar as it's on the balance sheet, right? If our estimation of what Russia exports, we have no way of disentangling whether that's stolen grain or not. Conversely, what Ukraine reports, we take that as face value. And of course, those numbers are evaluated in the context of importing countries. If I've got most of the Ukrainian corn going to China and Europe, there's the other side of that coin to make sure that actually lines up, if that makes sense.
Okay, well, I'm going to go back to Patrick, I'm sorry, you wanted to.
Mark mentioned it, but I just highlight that FAS did publish a commodity intelligence report. That was our best attempt to try to add more information to the public on, support our estimates and why we believe the numbers are what they are. So people can take a look at that. It's cleared by the World Board. So just wanted to add that.
All right, thank you. I am going to go back to the virtual world here. And for NASS, Chris Hawthorne, I hope you're listening here. For NASS, are crop acres excluded from condition ratings if they appear unlikely to be harvested? At what point does that happen? As soon as they appear unlikely to be harvested, or not until they are tilled up? I'm thinking of the winter wheat affected by drought in the Southern Plains. So Chris, what does our handbook for crop weather reporters say about that?
Can you reframe that question? I didn't hear all of that.
Oh, okay. I told you to listen.
It's still a little muffled on the audio, but that's okay.
One more time. Are crop acres excluded from condition ratings if they appear unlikely to be harvested? At what point does that happen? As soon as they appear unlikely to be harvested, or not until they are tilled up? I'm thinking of winter wheat affected by drought in the Southern Plains.
Yeah, so we're asking each week we're asking the percent of the crop that's expected to be harvested. So as you get closer to harvested, you can get kind of a catapulting into very say you're in the 60% range harvested, and then all of a sudden you can find yourself the very next week at 100% harvested because you basically have given up on that last bit of that crop. So the respondents that we talk to, which are mostly crop agents, extension agents, and things like that, they're going to let us know, their impression of what the crop is and what the condition of the crop that's standing. So you get a little bit of some variability at the end of the season, and that's why.
Okay, thank you.
Joe, I'd like to ask a question to that person.
Yeah.
It's Jerry Goodell, by the way. It relates to this whole scenario. Right now, the impression that's I've been getting is that the USDA's people are going out to make the evaluation about the viability of the crop for insurance purposes, and that during the month of April. So we're about halfway, a little bit more into that scenario. And that is a very, very important situation this year, considering the quality and the crop conditions we have out there and particularly specifically relates to this question about crop conditions, because of course, it's probably in the poor and very poor category that we're at. And it's always the game of what's the harvested acres versus the harvested acres. And right now there's been a tradition of 7-8 million on that. Now this year, that's kind of close to 10 is what you guys are estimating, which I think is the right way to be on the side of the question, but maybe it's 12, maybe it's 13. When does that, well, is that going to be involved in our, like the person just said, all of a sudden, boom, we go up substantially here on that unharvested situation because of the fact that this crop, is so, it's on a teeter-totter here. It's either going to get that one last rain that gives them a chance to have something for the custom cutters to go by, or are they going to drive all the way to Nebraska? That's the thing we're at right now. Is there any kind of feel or any update that might be helpful? I guess to some extent, nobody really knows until we get the final kind of numbers from these people going out there to evaluate if that's going to be good or bad. Is that the question?
I'll let our folks at RMA chime in here in just a second, but as you know, the folks that are hired by the AIPs to go out and evaluate their crops and such, I don't know exactly when they're out there or what rate they're going to be out there. That's a little hard for at least for us to know, and I'm not so sure that RMA would know, at what pace they're at because they go through those AIPs first. So, but any folks from RMA, do you have a comment?
Yeah, Joe, I don't think we have the right people on for that question, but we can always circle back.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll get the chance in the transcript, so expect we'll flag it for you for further comment. But it's tough.
Oh, totally agree. Totally agree.
Okay. This is from Dale Dirkholtz. And Julie from EIA, I think this is coming back to you. If an EIA official is online, are we going to start getting some reliable prices for renewable diesel at the wholesale and retail level? The absence of any price data is forcing the industry to quote back into prices to understand the economics of the industry. At present, the West Coast and maybe the Gulf Coast are the most important regions.
Right. I'm unaware of any plans right now to be publishing any of those prices, but I can certainly express to our management that there's interest for that.
All right, thanks. I think it's about break time, but we'll give we're going to have one quick AMS question before we go to break. Just what you wanted to hear, right? All right. Are there any plan, this is from Gail Pounds Barnett, by the way. Are there any plans to make the swine marketing contract library resemble the cattle contract library?
Currently, no, but once we hope that the cattle contract library is made permanent, we'll definitely start conversations to look at that to hopefully provide some more clarity to that data that we already have available and make it a little easier to access. But right now, it's just something we have in the back of our minds that could happen, but there's no definitive plans as of now.
Okay. Well, with that, we will go on. Okay, go ahead, Don.
So with those two reports being done by separate agencies, how are you going to meld the two?
I don't know. That's the conversation that has to be had. We're in the same agency, so we'll make it work somehow.
2 units in the same agency. Okay. I think it's time to go on, take a little break. I think we have some refreshments out in the hallway. We have a number of questions still in the queue here. I know that there are more questions in the room, so be thinking about them. We'll take all comers. And I think Jerry and Dale have a topic they want to bring up. I've got a couple slides that they provided me, so we might take it up immediately after break. So 20 minutes and back in the room. Thanks. You know, some data users even like to bring their own slides. So Jerry and Dale, I think you have a question that you want to motivate with a slide and maybe get a little discussion on. So Jerry, I'll let you go ahead and start.
Yes. My will be presenting the the corn slides and that, and also Dale has contributed some of his soybean analysis slides too. It's a question that's been gnawing at me for a few years in that. And I think the USDA's approach with a regression analysis has been based upon a 1990 to now trend. It's been, if you look at that particular trend up there, it seemed like it worked real well about 2018. I know there's been, wet weather and there's been dry weather and there's been, not a too bad a situation here 2 years ago and that, but it just wasn't able to get back up to 176 and a half, 77. And then last year we had the issues of dryness in the Western Corn Belt and that. And one of the things that has been talked about from the USDA is that they've used a weather adjusted yield and that. And to get to their 181 and really the most recent trends that they've used, the only way I could figure out what a weather adjusted yield is that we forget about what happened in 2012 and just take it out of our regression analysis, which has some logical scenarios, and it to some extent didn't do a terribly bad job, maybe back in 14, 15, 16, 17. We were kind of splitting those, potential out there. But right now, I have a hard time really imagining a 181 yield. Let's flip to the next slide, Joe.
Gotcha. Did it advance? Hang on.
So in that case, I put the 112 in, excuse me, 123 in 1912 or 2012. I'm all messed up. Anyway, utilizing this trend from 1990, a regression analysis, we know there's problems with regression analysis, but it's a standard tool we all use in that. And so here we are. 2 years ago, we hit it on the head there on that. And then this year we'd be at 179. Well, it's 2.5 bushels less than the trend line that we've been using here without 2012 in it and that. And to some extent, I don't know, I just feel like the USDA trend should be closer to the potential range we're at. I just feel like it's maybe got lost here in the fact that we've got too steep a line going and that. And it doesn't mean that all of us in the analytical world understand the statistics, and we also understand the fact that weather can have a big impact, things of that nature. But the one thing that does come along is the fact that our investors in the East Coast and the big funds, they look at the USDA statistics and they say, wow, that Ag Outlook thing says there's a $2 billion extra supply out here because we're using a 181. To me, I think we maybe need to bring this back into a different, closer range. Either we put 2012 back into the trend line. Now I know it's like, oh, we just issued a 181.5. We can't unissue it. But the same situation, I think it's something to consider as we march forward here. And one of the other alternatives, and it's already on the screen here, is to look at a trend line that goes from 2013 to now. And that particular trend line puts it at 177.4. Now, you say, wow, we've had 174s, 170, close to 177. But in reality, maybe we are on a plateau here. And maybe we don't really know, if not, the genetic world, we're all marching forward. We're going to have fantastic stuff. Problem is how many closer can we make the rows? How much weed control can we do? This is an issue you're going to see on the bean side, but on the corn side, that hasn't really been an issue. It hasn't been something that's been talked about that maybe we, in the short term, because I guarantee, we still have the longer term things going to 200 bushels. And we're all optimistic. We all love it. That happen, we have to make sure we get plenty of ethanol and a few other things to figure out how to sell it. But to me, that's what I wanted to bring up. I wanted to bring up the concept and ideas here. I know that this is not a place that we can make changes in one thing, but it's a scenario to look at a better idea so that the information flow that comes out to the world, they take it the right way. Right now, they're taking our 181.5 yield, and they're feeling like, well, there might be a 184 in it.
Okay.
And to me, that is pretty optimistic type of number after a 173. Now, I had a discussion with one of my friends in this business, and he said, well, we can't make that adjustment on the weather into the trend. I agree. But the trend at this point might be at least bringing back the 123 number and making it more realistic to be in the proper range of possibility at this point.
So, Jerry, if it's okay, do you want to go ahead and have Dale comment on his slides, and we'll take them both pieces together and get some responses?
I'm the first one in the beans in that, but you can put that right up. And
all right, sorry.
Then he's asked the rest of them for there.
Yeah.
But the bean number, just using that same 30-year trend, I get a 120 or 51 bushel yield. So, but his slides, and I hope he's there to be able to, and that is, I think, shows a lot more of the plateau situation. Dale, go ahead.
Can you see that your slide should be up on your screen, Dale?
Is he available? I think he was.
Yeah, there we go. We unmuted now.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, this is a slide that Jerry put up. I haven't looked at this so much at this point. This is just something that I've played with over the years. These two here, first starting with this one and then the one that follows. I first just looked at a soybean yield chart and nothing on it. And I went, wow. It's amazing when you look at this, that mid 70s to about 1990, yield trend was actually flat. And then you go from 1990 to about 2003, 2005, yield trend was flat. And then you stepped it up again and your yield trend flattened out. And certainly the last 5 to 6 years, you get this feeling that your yield trend is flattened out again. And I think if you go on to the next slide, Joe, it really kind of shows it better. If you really look at it, when yields come in, and I think the same thing is true for corn, when yields come into the picture here and we're making adjustments, it seems like we go through a period where we have yield just improving, but at a slower rate. And that's what really shows by the green line on here. That's kind of a stair step. But then you get a sudden influx of technology into the mix there, and you have a big leap upward, and then we trend at a slightly lower rate higher, for a number of years again. So what I'm really saying is the yield to me don't come in a linear fashion. And I think the same thing is true for corn. I have another slide of my own in here for corn that I could share to people if they were interested, or where the slope changes over time. And I think that's one thing that people kind of lose sight of, is that yield improvements come in surges and then they slow down because technology comes in surges, and then it kind of dithers away a little bit until we get that next big change once again. I really understand though, what both Keith and Michael and the rest of them are trying to do with the linear thing and the weather adjusted trend. If I remember right, that was something from Paul Westcott, I believe, back a number of years ago, because, the problem you end up with in using like what I do on beans and what I do on corn, where my slope changes a little bit, is where do you gauge where that slope has changed? And that's something that you can never really be comfortable with. And so with all of that, USDA can't use yield trends like I use, or like what Jerry was showing on corn. But I think the industry needs to talk about it a little bit more in here, that, even though the USDA is putting out this yield, maybe this is really more representative of where we are and what we are today.
All right, thank you for those comments. I think there's a question or two in there. So Mark, I'm going to go to you first and see where you want to send it.
Yeah, I'll start it. Almost sounds like maybe Dale answered Jerry's question. I think, USDA's objective is to be transparent and consistent and put out information that people can understand. And, if you're starting to talk about nonlinear trends over time, it gets pretty complicated. And I think Dale even pointed out that, trying to make those adjustments in real time over time would add another layer of complexity. But let me turn it over to the folks who are actually running models, Mike, Joanna, and
how's
their
that?
thoughts. Yep, you're good.
Okay, so let me organize my thoughts here. So appreciate the comments, Jerry and Dale. So the first component to this is, what was the original impetus for the method that we have? The original impetus was, we just came out of the 12 drought, and most folks in this room, I think, understand that at WAB, we don't collect survey data. That's not our wheelhouse. That's what NASS does. Any of these methods that we talk about, whether it's weather models, satellite imagery, crop conditions, in my opinion, will always be inferior to survey-based estimates that NASS provides, number one. So coming out of the 12 drought, is it my feedback? Okay. Coming out of the 12 drought, we wanted, Paul Westcott was the primary author. The paper actually we wrote is about a decade old now, but the method is the same. We wanted to come up with a simple but effective way to, if necessary, adjust yields early in the season should there be adverse weather prior to survey data being available from NASS. And so that was the impetus for what we did. And I think it's a blunt instrument, to be sure, and it's certainly no substitute for survey data, but I think the transparent method in which we did it and the fact that you can replicate it, it's not complicated, I think it serves its purpose. And also, while providing a objective starting yield. So I would say to you, Jerry, I would say the opposite question would be, if we saw normal planting progress for corn, for example, and we had cooler than normal and wetter than normal temperatures, such as what we saw in 2004 or 2009, where would the national yield be? Would it be 181.5? Because I would posit that the probability of that would be much, it would be much greater than 181.5. And so we're trying to reflect the possibility of outcomes both to the upside and the downside.
Okay, now what 2 years you're talking about?
04 and 09, just as examples. I mean, you could.
04 and 9, both of those are the abnormal 165 yields versus the 145 to the 153 yields during the early 2000s. You're saying that that was really reality?
I'm just saying our starting point is we're trying to reflect a mean yield that would best represent the potential outcomes both to the upside and the downside.
I understand that. So to make your thing currently at 181, the only way I can get to that 181 is that you drop 2012. Did you drop 2012?
No, we control for the fact that 12 was abnormal in the sense that it was a much drier than normal June, and then it continued through the summer months, July and August.
Well, they started the year before, to be frank.
And what I would say too is, while I appreciate what you and Dale are looking at, a simple linear trend does not provide us a methodology by which we can objectively adjust yields prior to survey data being available from NASS, right?
I totally agree.
It would be, I mean, what will we base it on? Crop conditions? I mean,
I think the one thing that I pointed out in this thing is the fact that if we put the 2012 in here, then it would be a lot more representative of the last 5 years after we had it would provide us a middle ground of 178, 179. The 181, which is our top side all the way to 185, or in the bottom side down to 178, which we haven't been able to achieve. So to me, projecting a yield that's 4.5 bushels above the previous yield we've ever had doesn't seem like to me as a realistic expectations to put out. It's not between you and I. It's between us and the investors and the people that look at our statistics that have all the money. They're the people that are using the 2 billion bushel carryover stock to decide, oh, we got to be short corn up our butt because it's going to be huge. Now, to me, if it says it's 113 or 115, maybe they have a different edit. That's what I am pointing out. That doesn't mean that all I'd say is put 2012 back in there. It compensates for the 2 years you talk about, and we have a more realistic term. Now, maybe this is the year El Nino is going to show up on May 31st, and we're going to have 183 bushel yield. I hope like hell that you're right. Let's go for it. But I'm still worried the fact that we are not seeing that in the current trend. Now, we don't want to put that in our mindset that this is what we're going to have, but we all look at these statistics. And when you look at those statistics, I think they provide an unrealistic number that a lot of people are misrepresenting as to what is realistic and the conditions we have right now. Now, that's my opinion on the corn. The beans, I agree, it's hard to make a stair-step world. And the same thing on corn. But I think if you put those 2012 in here, you get a hell of a lot closer to a range that's feasible.
Can I add one thing, Jerry?
I'm done.
So, you know who Bob Nielsen is, right? Professor Emeritus at Purdue University, longtime corn guy. He coincidentally wrote an article in February of 23. It's up on his King Corn blog, right? Very short article, but very good. And in the article, the title headline is Grain Yield Trends, Don't Be Fooled. And in the article, he offers 2 anecdotes, which I thought were useful in this context of talking about short-term trends. And I'm going to quote him here. Sorry for reading. If you don't want to listen, you don't have to. But he talks about the year I graduated from high school was the end of a 10-year run of impressive improvements in national corn grain yields, with the exception of the 1970 Southern corn leaf blight epidemic. The linear trend yield calculated for that 10-year time period was a pretty good fit to the data, R squared, 72%, and indicated that the yield had increased at a rate of 2.9 bushels per acre per year. There were undoubtedly agricultural experts at the time who confidently proclaimed that the third miracle of corn yield improvement had occurred, and that by the year 2023, this year, The average US national corn grain yield would be close to 237 bushels per acre.
Good projection.
That's one anecdote. He's got another one though. Similarly, the advent of hybrid corn with transgenic traits in the mid-1990s was loudly hailed as a precursor of the third miracle of corn yield improvement. Such proclamations were based in part on simple trust in the power of biotechnology. Others pointed to the 10-year trend line beginning in 1996 that seemingly showed the historical trend in corn yield improvement of 1.9 bushels per acre per year had miraculously increased to 2.7 bushels per acre per year. That apparent increase in the linear rate of corn yield improvement predicted a national average corn grain yield for the year 2023 of 200 bushels per acre. So I'm not going to continue to read, but the point is that neither short-term estimate was correct. That's where I'm going with this. And that your point is well taken in terms of the last 10 years. I would argue are largely a function of poor weather, planting weather, and growing season weather in the Corn Belt. And again, just to reiterate, what we try to do is every year, what would be the objective starting point in terms of normal weather, normal planting progress? And it's easy to get lost in the more recent, I guess what's the term I'm looking for? Recency bias, as it were. So I won't talk anymore because we're talking past each other a little bit here, and I'll let Joanna talk about soybean yields.
Hi, everyone. I'm Joanna Hitchner. I work on oil seeds at the World Board. Thank you, Jerry and Dale, for your soybean charts. We also are guided by the Westcott-Jewison model. Dale, I liked your chart with the step-up methodology. It kind of says like every 5 years, maybe we should just take a 5-year average, and that should be our yield for that next jump up. But in terms of the model is super helpful, and Mike kind of went through this throughout the season. So in particular in the WASD process, when we do a yield every single month, like is the planting progress going well for corn, or how is the June weather? And so every single month there's kind of a variable that we can peg ourselves to adjust our thoughts on the yield throughout the season. So it's a helpful model for our process, and it's very transparent to the people that are seeing our model outside of USDA. And one thing that we have done, and this goes to Dale's point, is we have started to incorporate in the last 2 years a shift in our model back in 2013, because we were, after seeing years of data and it being above kind of our ideas of what trend would be, that there was some sort of shift in the trend line. So we do have a shift variable starting in 2013-14. So kind of in line with what you were thinking, but we are guided by the Westcott-Jewison model all in all.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. And kind of let that run a little bit, but we're going to move back to a few questions from online, and then we'll come back into the room. This is from Jose Montez, Jason. Jason Carwall mentioned that AMS has about 735 reports available via API. Where can we see a list of those reports, or how can we know if a particular report is available via API?
The API actually has a query you can run for reports available. Definitely can follow up with him on providing those, after this, but we do have a specific way to pull all the reports that are available or have data available in either of the voluntary or the mandatory APIs.
All right, great.
Jason, we also have on the My Market News site, we do provide a list of the market types and reports that are available via the API.
Yeah, there is a manual list they can download as well.
All right, great. Next question is from Hussein Jawani. Hussein asked and Chris Hawthorne, I hope you're out there. The weekly crop weather condition data for corn and soybeans is available on the state level. Are there any plans to get this on a more granular level, like regions within the states?
I'm here, Joe. I'm trying to get my video to work. I'll answer without the video, but not at this time. The the turnaround time is very quick to be able to just get it at the state level and the national level. I don't see that being feasible in the future.
We also have a little bit of a confidentiality problem when you get down to sub-state level. Now, one thing that we have for some crop progress information, we have a research division product that's a gridded area. And to be honest with you, I can't remember what variables that covers at the moment. I think, Bill, you've worked with that a little bit, right? The gridded area from our crop weather. And so that can give folks, researchers, a little bit more of a sub-state look at some crop weather information. This is from Daniel O'Brien. While understanding the difficulty of representing wheat varieties in the global wheat supply demand data, still would it be possible to provide more global wheat variety and class data in either the WASDE reports or associated crop outlook reports? So,
Mark.
Wheat by class globally. It's a difficult. I mean, certainly in Canada and US, there are some similarities across other areas of the world. Doesn't really, not that much. And it would be a challenge. And just getting that standardized, never going to pursue that. So anyway.
okay. This one's for Patrick, I think. From Julie Ingwerson. Patrick, is China subject to the same rules on daily export announcements as everyone else? There have been multiple times that sales to China are heavily rumored, yet sometimes it's weeks before the sales are announced.
Yeah, well, thanks for the question. Yeah, all countries are subject to the same regulations in our export sales reporting. I noted earlier that, we have over the years occasion where we've heard rumors that some of these sales had made, days or weeks ahead of the time that they were reported. As I noted, with our new export sales reporting system that we're working on, we are trying to address that situation through collecting more specific information from the exporters rather than an aggregate reporting that they currently do. We want to require contract by contract basis reporting, but on the larger sales, we are, collecting that data. So overall, we want to, we've heard these rumors or, complaints of possible late reporting, and we're trying to figure out how we can best address that through the program to make sure that there's confidence in the data that we're reporting.
Thank you. And while I have you, I've got another couple of questions. This is Julie again, and she's referring to, we had a little bit of a shaky start with the audio for our virtual guests. And she said, I would love to hear Patrick recap the progress from USDA FAS in upgrading its export sales reports. So if you want to give maybe a quick nutshell for that.
Okay. Yes. So over the last few months, we have had several, I think 6 outreach sessions with the exporters who report data to us. We've shown them the export sales reporting system to familiarize them with the system. We've talked about the new approach that we want to take with the contract-based reporting. We have heard concerns from them that it would be overly burdensome to provide the data in the manner that we are requesting. So we've heard those concerns. We have opened the system today for the exporters to go in to test, to play around with the system, to enter their data, to see if the system works for them. We also hope that they will test the electronic upload facility
which we have built in to try to minimize the burden on them in terms of reporting. So if they can program their systems to be able to download the data into a specific format that we've provided, then those spreadsheets can be automatically uploaded into our system. And we hope that that will make the process easier particularly for reporters who have a lot of data to send to us. So the system is open for testing. We're encouraging and actually pleading with countries to go in, companies, I'm sorry, to go in to test the data. We need all the exporters to go in, put hands on the system and make sure it works for them. We are also planning to issue an exports a Federal Register notice soon that will give everyone a chance to provide input to us officially about, you know, the burden of reporting sales through the system. They'll have an opportunity to comment about the contract-based reporting. And we're also encouraging data users who may have concerns like what was mentioned earlier about the late reporting to also provide comments if you have an interest in having confidence and reliability of this data, make your views known. And I would add also that soon we do plan to also have outreach sessions with data users to collect any additional comments about the formats of our reports and about the query system, in addition to the feedback that we have received through the survey that we put out. And so users, in addition to the test that we're doing now with the reporters, data users will also have an opportunity to see these reports in advance before we change over systems to make sure that that data, as we have it prepared and delivered, will work for users as well.
All right, so I have one more question for you, and I think you just kind of addressed it. So, but this has a little different angle. The new export system that's being revamped had a much different layout. Data was being reported in different quantities, and the columns were in different orders. Are you planning to give? This is from Joseph Lardy. Are you going to give users a sample of what the final format will be before it happens? Also, would it make sense to implement on a new marketing year for corn and beans, so less user formatting headaches?
Yes, as I noted, the data users will have an opportunity to see the reports and the query system in advance when we open up the data user side of the system for testing, which should happen soon. We don't believe that the changeover to the new system will cause or require us to shift marketing years for the commodities.
Okay, this is from Karen Braun, and she's asking of Mike Jewison. Straight to the source here. Okay. I want to clarify that a 181.5 corn yield, in USDA's opinion, reflects the probable national result with relatively normal weather. Very good weather, like in 2004 or in 2009, could push the 2023 yield even higher, like 184 plus. Question. Thank you.
Hi, Karen. Hello virtually.
Good.
Thanks for the question. My point of the example was just to illustrate the fact that we're talking about average or normal weather and normal planning progress, right? So to answer your question, the expectation if you had 04 or 09 like yields under normal planning progress. The expectation would be, yes, you would be above 181.5. In terms of where that would end up, survey data would tell you at the end of the year. So.
Okay, I wanted to come back to the room anyway, so go ahead and then I'll come to you next. Just repeat what he said.
Is the risk symmetric? And the answer is no. The precipitation, the impact from one standard deviation above the mean is not the same as one standard deviation below the mean, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Can I just ask one more question,
No, sure,
if I could? I would like to hear maybe from the panelists about API efforts that you guys are having. I have had some success with some APIs, but not with others. I use NASS, I use AMS. With FAS, I have had a lot of trouble. So just if there is plans to
show a little about
to-
APIs.
Yeah.
I think we're all going to say that we're on a journey and we're working at it. But Patrick,
we have these APIs out there for our key data products, as you suggested. If you have had trouble or if you're having trouble using our APIs, see me after the meeting and I'll be happy to put you in touch with our IT folks who can help you and walk you through it. We've worked with other people in the past who have struggled with the APIs. But we have them, people use them. I don't know that we're planning any changes to them necessarily, but we're happy to help you work through the ones that we do have.
I want to echo that for NASS. I know that it can be a challenge sometimes to find what you're looking for in quick stats, for example. And if you want to use an API, there's a little bit of a hurdle to that. And so if you're having trouble, on every report, we've got names in the back of that report, reach out to us, or even call the 1-800 number and we'll get somebody on it to work with you to get you where you need to be. And I wish that we had more data that we could show. We really haven't turned on the milk data is good, but it's really kind of a toy at this point. We need to turn the API stuff on. But when we do, you're going to see that you can pull back everything, including footnotes and all really nice stuff that you can do with how we'll have the new API organized for our new dissemination process. But really just getting started there. Let me see if I'll come to you and you. But first, I want to see if anybody else has an API comment. Okay. Back here, and then, well, wait a minute. Is yours related to his comment? Okay, I'm coming back. Okay. Nope, the fellow behind you, sorry. Sorry.
First off, I want to thank the USDA for taking the time on the busy day and all the agencies answering the questions. My name is Joel Carlin. After 18 years of Western Milling in the San Joaquin Valley, I'm president of Ocean State Research in Warwick, Rhode Island. My question is, we've seen big changes in acreage, national acreage, from the March intentions to June and then to the final. But going on quick stats, there's no state acreage data for the June acreage prior to 2018. And there's no state acreage for the March intentions prior to 2012. And I was curious if that would be updated. And as I was thinking about this question and thinking about Dale and Jerry's comments, I'm curious if people at the USDA has done some work on the fact that row crop acreage in the Dakotas has increased tremendously over the past few years, and whether that's had a deleterious effect on the national yield. But I'm primarily concerned about this acreage data and NASS being updated at the state level. Thank you.
I'm surprised at that, but I think because I don't have Lance online with me, and unless Chris has a comment out there, that in a couple of days we'll take that back and there'll be an answer in the transcript for sure. So yeah. Make sure to address it. Chris, you
Joe, I can say a little bit about that. There was a like you said, the time frame that you referred to, where we didn't capture that June and the prospective plantings in March in quick stats. For historical, they would be overlaid as we got the more final data. Now, obviously, we around that time, 2018 or whatever, we started putting that in and recording that March and June data for reference purposes. As we get towards,
We have
yeah,
all,
go ahead.
we all have all that data from the track records at a national level, but not at the state level.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
It's in there for the track records. It's not on quick stats. So ultimately, we are going to try to go back and load all that, because our hope is to get track records into quick stats and do those calculations in quick stats. So the plan is to do that, but it's going to take a little bit to get that in there. A lot of data to get back.
And probably not this fall, because we have a date with a very large survey process in the Census of Agriculture. So,
right.
Yeah. And so I think there was another piece to the question about acreage in the Dakotas and such. I don't know if you guys have comment.
Right, yeah, we have looked at putting North Dakota into the yield model. And I mean, it's not that we just run one yield model. We have a committee process and we look at different types of things that are going on, and it's always an evolving process. And we have like thrown North Dakota, and the problem with North Dakota specifically is it's grown tremendously in the past few years. So just a few years of data, it's not statistically significant yet within the model. But perhaps if we see more years and it kind of having a bigger impact on the model, then we would include it into the model.
Yeah, I always like to say, if you went back to the I think mid 90s and you look at the soybean levels today in North Dakota, saving for a prevent plant kind of season, you could fit the entire landmass of Maryland is how much the amount of soybean acreages increased in North Dakota. It's pretty striking. Anything else to add, Mike? I think that's right. I think you have it correct. Yeah, that's true. So for North Dakota is both an objective yield state and what we call speculative state. So we consider a speculative region for soybeans. Do I have it right, Nick? And that's not true for corn, even though there's a substantial amount of corn in North Dakota. Okay. Yes, I think you were next, and then back to you.
And good afternoon. Rob Robotham from the Grande Cheese Company.
Yep.
And, first, thanks to USDA for the breadth and especially the accuracy of the dairy data you produce and accumulate, because we use it on a daily basis. It's very useful. There are two different series where I'm looking for more information. One is in the whey protein area for both whey protein isolates and whey protein concentrate. Looking for sales data on both price and volume, similar to what we see in dairy market news for other dairy commodities, and then also international trade, import, export information. And the second set of data we're looking for really falls to AMS and the FMMO, the Federal Milk Marketing Orders. We'd like to see something that's de-identified for processor milk payroll data, specifically at a farm granularity, and that's where we have to get into de-identification of production components and cell count information, so that we can try to forecast better milk supply over time, as we're seeing the tremendous concentration that we are in the dairy industry.
Yeah, thank you for the question. You're way outside my wheelhouse on that one. So if Marissa could flag that one, we'll definitely have Lori and the team from the dairy team get you a response for that. I know that they are actively looking at some of those things. I've heard them talk about it, but I couldn't do it any justice right now.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Sorry for that, but we will get you an answer. And back over here, I believe.
There you go. All
Yeah.
right. Sorry, I didn't bring my Gen Z kids with me to operate it. So on that note, so Matt Roberts, Terrain, I'm a little bit of a data dinosaur. As you transition to Swagger, as you transition to API, are the plans there to continue to make those full data downloads, to continue making those available, or are you planning to deprecate that service?
No, we'll still have it to where you can very easily download data. In fact, it'll be easier. And Tony, I probably should let you in on this. I'm excited about it, but I'll let you kick in. You know, if you're interested in, at the moment, say dairy data for a particular state or group of states, or, you know, you'll be able to actually manipulate that page to make it look like how you'd like, and you can even save it so that it'll look like that the next time we release or populate with new data. So it should be very intuitive. Tony, you want to add anything?
And as we do, excuse me, develop the new website, excuse me. So as we develop the new website, we've gone out to different data users, and we're always taking feedback as far as exactly what we need. So, you know, right now, I think you're talking about like if the PDFs or something like that could be downloadable. Or no, you're not talking about that?
No, I'm enough of a dinosaur. I download the entire QuickStat database right here locally, the PSD. Those are up there just as entire zip files. It allows me to work on a plane. It allows me to work in places that I don't have reliable connectivity, or I don't have to deal with when the inner tubes decide to die.
Right. Okay. So yeah, definitely. I mean, the databases that are available, we're going to be able to do the same thing, let users do the same thing in a different way. And we're going to have, you know, I mean, that's where we're going to keep quick stats out there for quite a while to make sure that we cover all the uses before we stop providing that data, so everybody has a smooth transition, a long enough transition, so we don't immediately go to something else. But all the databases will be available for downloading, and how that's going to look, we still are developing exactly how that looks. You can get a really good taste for it right now, what's out there, but we're going to have more query features, and along with the APIs, we'll provide more support as far as like downloading and users be able to get their hands on the data and do things that you want to do with it in a way that, you know, you can't really do with quick stats. And like Joe said too, there's going to be more information available, such as timestamp when the data was released, information about the data, footnotes, data dictionary items too that are going to be available electronically in the downloads that you're going to be able to pull to give you more information about what we have. So that will be available, and we have that in mind, and we're continually using usability tests with different data users too. So, you know, we want to make sure that we're keeping everybody's uses in mind while we develop, so that we don't just do what we think we want, but we want to do what everybody needs to. And we know there's a lot of different uses out there, and that's one of them that we're keeping in mind as we develop it.
And I'll just add that we, there's lots of different kinds of data users. For example, some folks that are very interested in perhaps a state, if you're, and we plan, although, we're not far enough along that it makes sense to do this yet, but to be able to make, the ability to very easily create, a set of statistics that describe a state or an area, and be able to surface those. And as things kind of come into focus, we'll start doing some more training and stuff. We're still a little ways away. I saw a hand go up there. Yes.
Thank you. I realize this is just a test site for milk production, but is NASS going to continue to group the data by report that has historically come out from?
Right. If you see there's like a dairy, we're calling them kind of landing pages or groups of data. So that way, it makes a lot more sense structurally. You're going to dairy, field crops, livestock, economics, and so on. So there'll be groups of data where you can easily, it's logical how you get to that website and see what data is there.
So not necessarily by the name of the report, but by a different category.
The common name, right? Yeah. Okay. Yes.
We'll make an effort that there's a crosswalk so folks aren't lost.
I appreciate that.
Yes, back in the corner.
Let me be the first to say that if this USDA thing doesn't work out, I think Mike Jewison has a backup career in audiobook recording. I thought that was a very nice reading he did earlier, so thank you for that.
Okay.
My actual question is for AMS. So you all put together some really good prices for a lot of different markets that are very opaque. Sometimes, and it's my understanding that a lot of these prices are voluntary reporting. So in some cases, some prices that the market tends to follow just won't show up for many weeks or even months at a time. Is there any thought on ways to prevent that going forward?
Do you have like an example?
Yeah, so like corn oil, the crude degummed corn oil price, Central Illinois hasn't printed since, it's a weekly price. It hasn't printed since January.
Yeah, I mean, we're at the mercy on the voluntary side of what we can get reported to us. That example is a market that has historically been held pretty close to the best on how they market those products. And we have to be careful to meet confidentiality and also be able to supply data. We don't have enough sources of data in that case, and I have no foreseeable plan to how we could get it. I mean, we're always trying, but there's just certain instances where if we don't have enough data, we can't report it, and that's the bottom line. But we do get requests for that specific data quite a bit. We do have people feet on the ground. We work through our state coordination. We do have working agreements with about 30 states with reporters, and we do task them with trying to find information like that and help us get other sources. But oftentimes when you have a market like that, that's very condensed and everybody knows each other and one person doesn't want to give it to USDA, they all tend to go that way and it's difficult to break in. But the best answer I can give you is we do try to get those data points. And if there's any data points that you are aware of that you think would be beneficial or want us to look into, we're always open to those discussions as well.
I'll make this a pitch at this point too, is that, as you work with companies and other folks that may be clients or whatever else, you need to explain to them the feedback loop process that, if you, we need data reported in order to, describe what's going on and to accurately, report back to you all about the current situation. I have a question. I'm going to go online for a moment here. I have a question from Eric Daniel Guerrera Rodriguez, and I apologize if I didn't do justice to your name. With Mexico banning GMO corn from the USA, are there any plans from the USDA to publish any information on how much corn in the USA is non-GMO? Well, we don't publish how much is non-GMO, but we do publish how much is GMO. So, and it's a pretty high proportion. Yeah. Yeah. There are some other data from FSA for some sub-corn types that can be useful. But for GMO, we also have published a long series on GMO soybeans as well. And cotton. Am I leaving anything out? I think that's the full set. At some point, we may have published some data about alfalfa as well, but I don't recall when or where that would have been. Okay, other questions here in the room? Yes.
Ty Kreitman, the Kansas City Fed. Thank you all for your expertise. This question is sort of related to survey sample sizes, response rates, directed towards Tony and others at NASS. What are some broader trends that you're seeing in sample size, response rates, some of the biggest challenges for maintaining those, and then maybe some strategies for mitigating those risks?
All right, thank you for that question. Of course, we have a lot of our surveys, we have CVE targets and we have targets that we have to make for accuracy. So if response rates go up or down, the sample size, if there's a trend, will reflect that too. Of course, we need more sample size a lot of times if response rates are going down, and it's always a challenge. I mean, with our surveys, a lot of the surveys that we have, outside the census products are voluntary. So, I mean, that's why we, keep trying to press the word and how important it is to respond to data, because survey data is really the live ground truth that everybody relies on, and hear from the data. So there is a definite trend of sample size, and there's always a, we look at coverage as well. So, there's only so many sample size of large producers. You can't, there's not an unlimited sample of farmers in the country too. So, we just need, and what we've been doing a lot of with public relations, with outreach, things like that, we've been doing a lot of that to stress the importance of the data. And I mean, just as overall trends, I mean, you can see the questions here too. There's more and more of a demand for more granular data and more data, more and more data. So that's also an issue of respondent burden on farmers. We have to keep in mind too, you know, we send long questionnaires sometimes with lots of economic questions, detailed questions. And, you know, that's a big burden on farmers, and they're the ones who keep getting all the surveys and everything. So we're trying to be cognizant, you know, kind of gatekeepers of that in a way too. So, and try to make it easy for farmers to respond is a big part of that. So it all kind of ties together, you know, trying to get the information from the farmers, make it easy and accurate so that they can report. So that all ties in, you know, that's an important piece of sample size, but it's related to the whole issues that we're facing and that we're dealing with and getting responses and getting accurate data out there. So good question on that. And I don't know if there's any more. I'm sure there's a lot more to add to that too, Joe, for anybody else.
Yeah, Tony, I'll add a couple of comments. I had the privilege the other day of giving some remarks at a conference, and you know, looking back over the last decade from 2007 to 2017, Census of Agriculture, we're still collecting 2022, we dropped about 8 percentage points over the time frame in response. And so, you know, that's you know, on 2 million farms, you know, you can, you know, that's like 160,000 responses. And so our ability to produce data at a national level, not impacted. Most states, not impacted really so much. You have to start worrying about maybe some bias issues. This is in the census, right? So you have, you know, pretty much everyone is included in the census. When you get down to county level, things get blurrier, right? I mean, that is where you start losing granularity. You're also subject to a little bit more about what you can publish. You've got confidentiality restraints. And in our survey programs, you can back up almost a level. You know, a smaller corn state, could we be off? More likely, yeah. You know, as response rates go down, or, you know, on-farm grain stocks, for example, if you're thinking about a smaller state, and you're towards the end of a marketing year, it's kind of a rare event anyway to find on-farm stocks. So, you know, the blurriness, if you will, you're thinking about the uncertainty, is worse at the lower levels of aggregation. And it does give you pause if you're a statistician. And that's true, really, this isn't something unique to NASS or, you know, unique to the federal statistical system. You ask anybody in the survey research world anywhere, and there's lots of discussions on why and how. Our response rates relative to other federal agencies and certainly other folks in the survey research world are, you know, really great. We're going back to the sort of where we were with the census. Right now, we're pacing about 6 percentage points. I think that's right. I might be oscillating a point or two from the pace that we were on last year. I don't have a response rate because you pretty much have to be done, and it's kind of a complex computation actually. But we're pacing a little bit below it. So anything that y'all can do when you go out and you talk to clients or farmers or give a talk, is that data is very useful, and it's useful in ways you might not anticipate. You know, whether that comes in, you know, how things get allocated, those data get used in just a myriad of ways, on whether it's on, you know, on the Hill or within the department to make judgments and to allocate things, or looking at, you know, equity issues and things like that. Now, in our annual survey program, the other thing to bear in mind is, if you're a big wheat guy, we're probably going to come talk to you, right? Because you have a lot of a total. And that's the way sampling will tend to work. What gets challenging is, if you're a big wheat guy, you also raise organic corn, and some reason you decide to grow a lot of vegetables and melons, you're going to be in all of those surveys, and you might even land in ARMS as well. And so those folks really do get a lot of burden. And we take, you know, every effort that we can to build a relationship with them and continue that relationship over time. But it's not easy. We do ask a lot of folks that are relatively influential in agriculture. But that influence can vary depending on what we're looking at. If we're, right now, we did some oversampling of traditionally underserved groups, for example, in our ARM survey. So those folks became quite important, and they were more likely to have burden placed on them of a relatively long survey, for instance. So it depends on sort of what's going on within our survey program too. Sorry for the long answer, but it's a great question. Great question.
Great answer.
Thank you. If there's not a question in the room right now, I'm going to go to a couple more questions online. And I'll be honest, I may need some clarification or help in the room with this. This is from Ruba Al Hindi. And that person asks, how do you report for the total number of yield targeted agricultural commodities in quarter basis? For example, do you sum up all of the total yield of commodities for the fourth quarter to report on the annual basis? I'm stumped by the question. There may be a translation issue. Ruba, I'm sorry, but if you reach back out and maybe offer a little clarification, we'll take another shot at this question. This question is from Subhada Acharya, Acharya. And this person writes, is there any plan to backfill some of the missing data, for example, missing county variations in previous years? I think I know what this question might be about. So we publish county level data, publish it in the census, we publish it for certain commodities, and in some cases, we're not able to publish a particular county, either because of confidentiality or it was a complementary disclosure, meaning that county was not a disclosure problem, but we had another problem that we had to, another county in which we had to not show because of confidentiality. And of course, you can't just, not cover one because you got N- degrees of freedom. So in that case, we will not publish and never will publish that value. And some folks get a little tangled with that when they see Ds or something in a column, but it's part of our commitment under the federal requirements of collecting confidential information. So anyway, if either of those questioners have follow-up, I will take another shot at it. How about another question here in the room while I look at some others here? Yes, David.
Hi, David, Ag Economic Insights. I actually thought we were going to argue about the yield for corn being too low because it moved from 180 last year to 180 or 181 to 181.5, but I don't want to beat the dead horse anymore. So as somebody who tries to replicate the Westcott-Jewison model from a decade ago, is it still replicatable, or are there updates that you've done? I know you mentioned something along the lines of a soybean adjustment. So is there any guidance you could provide, or is there an update maybe to that framework that could be provided at some point? Thanks.
Great question. We always will note in the WASD, in the footnote of the WASD tables, how each yield is arrived at. So in the case of the Westcott-Jewison model, it's add another year and re-estimate the coefficients. All of the data is publicly available. If you have any issues in terms of sometimes, the National Climatic Data Center changed how they access, how you get data. So if you have issues with that, send me an email and I'd be happy to show you if that's an issue in terms of new weather data that would be out. But it's essentially the same, just adding more years.
Right. And like I said, we use the model and added a shifter to show the shift in yield. So you can touch base with me directly or ask questions directly, but it's the same model, just using a shifter starting in 2013-14.
I just want to say these weather models, I actually saw a paper published. It was the pre-World War I version of the Ohio Naturalist, where agronomists at the time were doing the exact same thing. So it's what Paul and I worked on. It's certainly not novel, right? And again, the whole idea is the simplicity behind it and standing on the shoulders of giants, to be sure, right? So, and again, just to reiterate, there's a difference between a person with weather without survey data and someone who goes out and collects survey data. So.
All right, I'm going to go back online for a question. And I think, Joe, this one might be you. This is from Holly. I appreciate USA Trade Online's data for import-export at the state and district level. I am from Hawaii Department of Ag. Many times data of shipping in Hawaii is critical info for local decision makers. Is it possible that that trade data between states are also available in the future?
Intra-state trade is a little trickier. It's not going to be in UTO because they're strictly international trade. I believe the Census Bureau just has something called the Commodity Flow Survey, but that only comes out once every 5 years. And that'll have more information there about interstate trade.
Yeah, and I don't know if there is any sort of administrative data for landings, you know, at shipments of products into Hawaii. But other questions here in the room? Okay, got a couple more minutes, so I'm going to go online again. This is from Ron Sturk. First, love your data and greatly appreciate all that USDA does. Question, probably for FSA, but also involves FAS due to imports. Are you planning to close the hole in SMD data involving non-reporters? When will you be able to gather report sugar data from non-traditional refiners about the only category that is growing in sugar and thus is having a greater impact on the accuracy of sugar production data? Ron, yeah. Uh-oh, I think we stumped the band. Okay. All right. Nope. Not biting. Okay.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that one.
All right, very good. We'll take that one from the transcript. Bill Nelson, the 2020/21 soybean residual remains a negative number. Do you foresee that ever getting back to zero or positive? As a negative, how do we interpret it?
The residual is the sum of all the errors in the balance sheet. So, yeah, I mean, we have the supply given by NASS and we have the use categories that are published publicly. And then the residual is negative. It's possible in the census that something could change, but yeah.
I would think, why shouldn't it be negative? I mean, you could think about it centered on zero.
Okay. I think it would be odd for it to be greatly negative, let's put it that way. I mean, or greatly positive if they're, except in the case of the feeding, right?
Could I ask the same question, that same vein?
Sure.
Why not? I got to jump in here once in a while. It turns out that given the numbers that we have for this year, since we're talking about something from a few years back, we had a negative residual, and that the current soybean statistics and the huge residual we're carrying right now at over 150 million, very similar to last year, and we had to go and readjust down the soybean size of the crop. Our friend Keith, maybe he's online, maybe he isn't, in that we decided not to make a change this month. I understand there's no reason to make a change possibly until now, and maybe you want to wait till June. But at this point, it seems like that we've got quite a battle going on here between the size of the crop and the demand levels, and we've got a huge difference going on. It's not that we could potentially have a smaller crop size that would also impact our carryover stock at the end of the year. And there didn't seem to be a tip of the hat even that possibility existed. So, you know, I don't know who answers that to the soybeans, since we have a wheat and the corn here, but I'd like to at least acknowledge that there might be a possibility going on in the crop size for beans.
So when we do our analysis before NASS comes out with their stocks number, we do a residual analysis just like the industry does, and we didn't come that far off from what our expectations of what they would come out for with the stock. So we didn't see a need for the adjustment this month or in March. Yeah, perhaps if we wait until June and we see something different, then yeah, we'd make the adjustment. But our assessment prior to seeing that number wasn't that far off from what we estimated.
Well, the statistics that were available to the public gave you a 57 million difference. Once we got the better statistics, we got to a 35 million difference.
Are you talking about the trade estimates? Like the
The
public
trade average
estimates?
estimate was 57. Then when we got all the statistics and census and also your updated crush statistics, that moved all the way down to a 35 million difference, which must have been your idea of what was the idea that was going to come in. That's why you didn't change it or make some suggestion of a potential soybean crop size adjustment. I'm not saying it has to be. If you made the judgment that was 35 million isn't enough, then that's fine. But it's an interesting situation when you look at the statistics that are available and then you come up with what it might turn out to be for a statistic. And soybeans are a very difficult one because it's a small output of stocks. So I agree that it's not the easiest one to make a judgment. To me, soybeans always are highly important to the market and highly emotional. So we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I guess my last comment would be that some of the trade estimates were way off. And so if you take the average of some of the trade estimates that were out there at like 1.9 billion bushels, you would be way off in terms of what the trade expectations were and what, like, if you just did your own analysis on it, what that would be, taking the trade estimates. But Keith, if you want to add in, feel free to jump in. I know he's here.
Good. I like to hear from Keith.
He may not want to jump in.
Okay.
I don't really, this is Keith Menzie. I don't really have anything to add, but except for one thing, Jerry, we tend to look for a pattern too over a series of stocks reports. Second quarter stocks can be quite variable, and the pattern doesn't necessarily show up. Tend to want to wait, see a third quarter stock. And I also obviously agree with Joanna. If you evaluate the data and the history of residual the way we did, we didn't really find the stock estimate to be very far off what we were expecting.
Okay, with that, I think I'm going to need to bring this to a close unless, Bill, you have a very quick comment.
I don't, not a quick one.
Okay, well, in that case, let's all talk about that at the reception. Because we are at or maybe a couple minutes overtime and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I do have a few thank yous. I want to thank all the panelists. Great job today. And the folks that were supporting you as well. I want to thank all of our attendees. I appreciate the attention, the great questions, both here in the room and online. And the hybrid is, I know we struggled a little bit with microphones, so I want to apologize to our virtual audience in the early going, but I think we got it lined out. And anyway, I appreciate the engagement, and we have folks from around the world that are engaged, and I think that's good because we want to hear from folks and have the opportunity to do a little bit better. I want to thank our planners and organizers, as always. Marissa's keeping us on track. And also Natalie back in up there in the world, and Melissa, who helped on a lot of things, getting us organized and getting us out here. And I always make this comment, but it is forever true. You know, for us, our business, what we do, we need to have the cooperation of farmers, ranchers, and agribusinessmen. You all often talk to those folks. You may tell them your viewpoint or what the outlook is going to be, or you know, what you think they should do, or some analysis for agribusiness firms that may have lots of grains in storage, or may you know, be important in a number of different ways in the industry. And it's important that, and I hope you will, take that back to all of those folks, all those stakeholders, all those data providers, and tell them how data our data, the data that NASS collects, but also the data that the other folks wrangle and stuff is important to the ability for you to do what you do and provide advice and for the market to operate in an orderly fashion. And because, you know, as far as a lot of farmers are concerned, they see that as, you know, something of a tax on their time. And we need to explain to them why that tax on their time is of value and worth the effort. So with that, I want to thank all the farmers and ranchers that have given us millions of pieces of data to keep doing what we're doing. And I want to thank you all for attending, and we'll bring it to a close. Thanks.